What's up with you? It's been a while.
Can you hear me?
Yep. I'll just increase your audio a little bit. Perfect. So it's been
Is it
quite
coming through all right now?
yeah, yeah, it's loud and clear.
Cool.
So it's been quite some time since our last stream, and from what I've seen, you've been involved in a couple debates. In a couple new debates. That was interesting. Although they were as disappointing as ever. Like the transgenderism one was just, and then the one before that, the fanatic one, that was hilarious.
Yeah. The last one I did of Dario was probably the dumbest debate I've ever been in, which is saying a lot because I've been in a lot of very stupid debates. But
It's because you're just way too smart for these people.
I guess I think that says more about them than me, though. This is just insanely retarded. The stuff going on.
Mouthy Infidel backed out. So what does that say about the left?
I don't know. I messaged him about that, and he never responded to me. Because I'm trying to figure out whether or not to shit on him in a very public way over this. Because he does. The thing is, he had said in the past in a thread, he had said that he wouldn't want to debate me. This was like in January, which I remember because I looked this up when I messaged him. That he wouldn't want to debate me because he felt like there was a difference between us in like statistical literacy and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
and that's fair enough. But then he goes on a debate with the name's losing me right now. The English guy.
Colette.
Yeah, Colette. And he's like, doing this whole performative thing of why don't the right wingers bring up more studies and statistics and stuff. And it's like, well, the reason you still won't debate me is still because you feel like I have more statistical literacy than you. Then what you're doing is like a fraudulent performative bullshit dance when you go right in front of conservatives who are less statistics based and then screech about them not having stats. Meanwhile, you literally refuse to debate right wingers who do have more stats on the grounds that they have more stats. Like that's, and I messaged him asking if that was what was going on, and he didn't respond to me, which is sad because I wanted to get a confirmation of that before I just started shitting on him about that.
I mean, most of them do that. If you watch the Hunter Avallone debates, well, he does that with a lot of people. I think Brian. He's been IP banned on Hunter's Discord for not even doing anything, and
Yeah,
not even he wants to debate smart people.
that's true, but they don't always like Hunter Avallone. It's obvious that guy is completely intellectually dishonest. I think in the case of Mouthy Infidel, that is much less obvious if that is what's going on.
And most of them are.
Well, yeah, that is true. That is certainly true.
I mean, the thing with Hunter is that he keeps LARPing as some sort of internet tough guy online, and I'm in a couple AF circles. So John Miller, Lance videos, not Dalton that much, but John Miller, Lance videos. These as well a bunch of these MAGA TikTokers, like people who are just the most normie people imaginable. He just immediately DMs them, no matter how much of a following they may have, for a debate. But when someone smart when someone smart DMs him, he always makes some excuse like, "Oh, I'm taking care of my daughter." This happened around last year. It was me and some other guys were in his Discord, and he was like, "Don't be a pussy, debate me." And then Brian said, "Okay, I'm an Orthodox theory. Let's debate on race." And then he just said, "Oh, actually, never mind. I have a daughter to take care of. Unlike you, I'm not terminally online." So
yeah, Hunter Avallone is roughly as cringe as a human being could be. It's just endless. Pathetic.
If you watch his response videos,
he's like writing bad rap music now. I guess is the occupational mode.
I don't know if you've seen my old video. He actually impregnated his. So this was back in 2020 or 2019. Actually, he knocked up his then girlfriend, ran away, then apparently went to a Turning Point USA thing or whatever. Basically, he tried to hook up with a regular girl. I don't know if it was from Turning Point or not, and he decided to win her heart, basically, or try to get in her pants, whichever you want to believe, by you know making just writing the worst rap song imaginable and sending it to her, and then that got leaked out. Yeah, and then the girl
That
told some. Then the girl told some other girl that Hunter had small balls, and then Hunter's excuse for that was he was just trying to physically prepare himself for the baby. Then knocks up his girlfriend. Then knocks up his girlfriend again, and then gets a shotgun wedding. That's basically his story.
that is as horrible as that seems fitting somehow for the person he is now. But how is he gonna like pull this card of I have to take care of my daughter and shit if he literally ran away from his daughter initially? And if that is what occurred, that seems rather problematic for him to use
Consistency.
it.
See, consistency does not exist in his philosophy because you can watch a Hunter Avalone video and he'll say one thing, and then when you look at another debate of his or anything else, he says something completely contradictory. And I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point, so I don't really need to expand upon that because he is just I mean, he's not just obnoxious, but he's just really stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's he famously used to be right wing and then switched to the left or whatever. And when
He
someone
wasn't even, he
switches
wasn't even right wing. He
political,
wasn't even right wing. He was like atheist, skeptic, anti SJW type. So I wouldn't really classify that right wing, but
yeah, but in any case, what I was going to say is just when someone switches ideologies, if like when a person who's not stupid does that, right? Like a non-stupid person thinks about issues singularly, and so what'll happen is they'll switch up on an issue or two. But when dumb people do that, they literally switch a whole big ass set of ideas over a short period of time, as was the case with him. And I don't think I've ever seen a smart person do that. Like that's a very strong sign that you're an idiot if suddenly you change your belief about like different things in the course of 6 months. Yeah.
and yeah, if you I've had I've s- I've had the misfortune of watching a lot of his videos just because of boredom, and wow, every time he makes a response video, he sounds whinier than ever. And he uses a lot of those 2016 triggered type of vocabulary, and you know it's not just cringe, but combine that with his bad physiognomy and just really whiny attitude. Well, I'm not the type to go after someone's looks, but his attitude just makes him look horrendous.
It's strong with him. I remember whenever I was making a video about him, I had to like refrain from just calling him a bitch repeatedly. But that's what you think whenever you see him watch him. Is like he just gives off that energy so strong, ridiculous.
Like passive aggressive woman type.
Yes, yeah, it's not good.
Even so, I know how men are supposed to rant. I've seen Nick rant on America First a bunch of times, and then I've seen Hunter Avalone rant a bunch of times. Hunter sounds like a typical passive aggressive woman who just found out some other girl stole his handbag.
Yeah, and he doesn't look incredibly dissimilar from a lesbian. On top of that, so
I mean,
it's
it
not.
doesn't help that he dressed up as it. I mean, it doesn't help that he used to be a cross dresser, just for quote unquote irony.
Okay, as a joke, not like a real cross dresser.
He made a video entirely in female makeup just to talk about just to make a joke about transgenders, which wasn't even politically incorrect. Nick kind of bashed
Gotcha.
him.
Okay. I initially thought you meant something more extreme than that.
I mean, maybe he does. It's something I realized in the left. They are absolutely obsessed with the trans craze. Like, even I have a weird feeling that if you looked at one of the bread tube types like Xander Hall or Vosh or Hunter, imagine just meeting them at a restaurant for a random dinner and they say something along the lines of, "Did you know that the consensus points to the fact that trans people exist?" And just starts listing off every single organization that has endorsed transgenderism.
Yeah, it's weird how obsessed they are with it. Like I've gotten more hate about trans stuff than I have race stuff, even though I've spent at least 50 times more time talking about the race stuff than the trans stuff. It's totally bizarre to me how freaked out these people. But then again, it's literally a community of crazy people, so maybe that shouldn't be as surprising. But yeah,
Yeah,
they're really.
the ones I've come across IRL aren't much different, honestly. I mean, they're all mentally ill and dysgenic, for that matter.
Yeah, the only trans person I've really known in person was like a very autistic seeming male who
Oh,
identified as, but it was a funny disconcordance.
yeah. Most of the trannies I've come across IRL are like trans men, and they go from without doxing too much of my personal information. They go from like relatively okay to just borderline insane. I'm talking about multiple suicide attempts, random fits of rage, violence, and asking for my opinion, then pretty much spurting out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I was
also a bit of
reading
a tangent.
the
Go
what's
on.
that?
A bit of a tangent, but go on.
Oh, I was gonna say I was reading the other day this paper about arguing kind of that trans people can broadly be grouped into categories of like fetishists on the one hand and like psychotics on the other, and they come in with two sorts of flavors, which doesn't obviously contradict my own experience, though I'm still sort of reading through the literature on that typology.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that these activists tend to cite is. Have you heard of Jack Durbin? He's like the primary transgender researcher guy. He's the one who made that. He's the one who wrote that cross-sectional analysis of puberty blockers, which supposedly had 20,000 people, but when looking at the people who actually took the puberty blockers, was like 88 people.
uh, I don't think I know his name. Maybe I've seen something he's written and not recognized him as a person. You said his name was Jack Durbin?
Jack Turbin.
Turbin. Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell. But I believe you that he has very bad research.
Dr. Avi tends to cite him a lot. In his debate with AJ, he brought him up. That's why it sounded so familiar to me, so I did a little background check.
Gotcha. Yeah, the research, the stuff that they try to push with the trans stuff is pretty crazy. I also read this page the other day from Cornell University entitled, What Does the Scholarly, because I still have the tab up, what does the scholarly research say about the effect of gender transition on transgender well-being? And it's a review of like 60 studies that all say the same thing. There's not a single study that has a negative result in the batch. And I just thought, man, like this is just made for idiots. Like anyone who's ever read any research literature is going to know there's no way that this isn't cherry picked. It's just impossible that there are 60 studies that all say that, even if the effect really is positive.
Brian actually made a response to that a while back. It turns out around 40 or so studies have sample sizes below 100. And one of them was just a mathematical model.
That doesn't surprise me. And a lot of them are also based on like self-reported emotion. I don't think is a good methodology to go by in this context. There are other problems. It surprised me that there was a problem that like blatant that they would just advertise for anyone who is like a reasonable person who's approached research before that this page is propaganda. It's like they put a propaganda sticker on the front of it, which is not good.
Weirdly enough, if you look at the Vosh doc or any of the docs these bread tube guides tend to cite, it's always under the big label of meta-analysis or meta-analysis, and like these people don't even know what that means.
Yes, I mean some of them don't, and their research docs are definitely full of stuff they don't understand. That's very obvious. Like the example I always think of, and I think this was a document used by Vaush but prepared by Rose Rist, I think. But it's a very popular research doc that the leftists use, and it has stuff in there about the hit rate disparity. Trying to evidence and whatnot. But there's a paper in the research doc that itself explains the so-called problem of inframarginality that invalidates that research approach. But my assumption is they either haven't read the paper or they saw that it said that their other papers were bullshit and they didn't care or whatever. But obviously, like an internalization of the full contents of the paper is not going on there, which is, to me, it pops out as a funny example of stupidity in those documents.
To use their own words against them, they say themselves that they don't have the statistical rigor to read a paper properly, so they just read the abstracts. And they also say that they appeal to experts primarily because apparently these quote unquote experts are the most educated on the topic, which you and I both know is false.
Yeah, that's such a crazy idea. There's several reasons why that's crazy. So in the first place, if you can't evaluate anything, then how could you possibly ever evaluate the efficacy of these experts? Right? Because you can't tell. So you're saying you're just the kind of person who's going to be born into a society and trust the experts on the basis of the fact that they told you they were the experts. And we know how that plays out in most societies and almost all of history. That leads to insane beliefs. And in the second place, it's not that hard to learn statistics. I don't understand what people's problem is. Like, if you've been interested in this stuff for a year, just buy a textbook. It's not, just do it. And then you can read the paper and it'll be fine. Like, I don't understand what the big resistance is to doing that. It's so bizarre to me. I don't even
think you need to go. I don't even think you need to go that far. Just look at a basic pre-stats PowerPoint presentation. Learn what Pearson's R is, learn what confidence intervals are, and what p-values are, and just use that. But no, these people think statistical significance means effect sizes. That's how dumb they are.
And then if you know that you don't understand statistics, why not just have a worldview not founded on statistics? That also seems to be. I mean, as soon as I realized that I wanted to have a worldview formed around statistics, I immediately started learning statistics. This just seemed like the most obvious, natural thing to do, but apparently this is something that they have some weird resistance to doing. Maybe they think it'll take like a decade or something to understand. And I think people underappreciate like the value of it too, because for the most part, the content of social science doesn't matter. It's if you understand the statistical language, which you could learn in like a month or two, you can basically understand like 90% of all papers in social science. Yeah, they should do that. Sad they don't.
Pretty much. If you watched Hunter Avalon's, so there was this debate panel for those of you for those that don't know. There was this massive panel on the war against men that it had like politically provoked. What's her face? Brittany. There was Hunter Avalon. There was Stardust. There was Nick Fuentes, and all of these guys, were debating one another. Hunter basically milked the shit out of the Nick Fuentes part because he spent like 15 minutes with really pathetic roasts. But that's not the point. What Hunter said was that boardroom innovation is highly correlated with diversity. And when Nick pressed him on causation, Hunter kept saying something along the lines of, well, you can't really, it's impossible to prove causation unless you have, an experimental setting. He said something along the lines of, you can't infer causation unless there is a treatment group and a control group and an experimental setting or whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Which is I guess that's kind of a weird thing to say in terms of what exactly he means by that, because if he means by that, we just can't confidently infer causality unless there's an experiment, and there's no experiment. If you believe those two things, then obviously what you have to do is not infer a confident view on causality. So I don't even think he's following his own, declarations consistently. And then on top of that, of course, diversity does not meta-analytically, ethnic diversity. I guess I don't know what kind of diversity they were talking about. I'm assuming that they were talking about group diversity, and that does not.
Well, mainly women. Women in the workforce, basically. But yeah, he also believes ethnic diversity contributes to increased innovation. And I mean, if you send him the meta-analysis on the topic, he would just say, well, it's still statistically significant, even though the effect size is like, what was it, like 0.004? 0.04?
I don't believe it was, and in most meta-analyses, it hasn't been. The demographic, at least most of the meta-analyses I've seen, the demographic diversity's correlation with innovation. But yeah, even if it was, like if the effect size is 0.04 or something like that, then it doesn't matter.
Unfortunately, he's too dumb to understand that.
Yeah, or just he wouldn't be willing to, even if he could.
I mean, he does have a habit of turning even the friendliest interview into a debate. But when when it's someone like you or me or Brian or well anyone remotely intelligent, he just runs away, which is it's something I can never get used to because of this weird tough guy veneer he uses, which is just retarded, honestly.
Yes, Hunter Avalon is a disgrace. This is this is the consensus, a self-evident truth
This is the
of the internet.
consensus, and the sample size is my entire Telegram channel, which is pretty representative.
I mean, let's be honest. The consensus, that's probably the consensus of all the people who have ever subscribed to Hunter Avalon. So,
Pretty much.
because his
I think he
ratio, I mean,
deletes. I think his
know
mods
this
in the
ratio is
comments.
like the worst I've ever seen on YouTube, or one of the worst anyway. It's crazy
Oh
how many
yeah.
people don't watch his shit.
I mean, his videos used to be somewhat creative back when he did skits, but now all he does is stare. All he does is sit in a room and stare at a screen and comment stuff no one really cares about. Like,
Never liked
imagine,
him.
imagine being a Hunter Avalon fan, just waking up in the morning and like I'm gonna watch Hunter Avalon and just watches a guy just complaining at the current state of things in a whiny woman accent.
Yeah, I dealt with some Hunter Avalon fans after making that video about him. They were coming after my claims, and their stuff was just crazy retarded. It was a lot of it was just, oh well, what you said wasn't in the abstract and stuff like this. Just
Oh,
very.
didn't Hacker make a video response to you? There was
Yeah,
that
there's a couple people that have, and I think he is one of them.
couple people. Wow.
Yeah, the most recent is some like it's weird. I'm hesitant to give these people even a little bit of like attention because they seemingly are like quite mentally ill people. The most recent one is this guy named Free, I think, who's made like a series of videos.
He goes by Hacker on Politically Provoked. He debated.
They're the same
quite
person.
a while back.
Right. I forgot they were the same person. Oh yeah, he's definitely mentally ill, but Jesus.
Yeah, he debated Nikolai a while back, and he just said that all he can do is understand abstracts. And yeah, he is genuinely retarded. If you know who Wurzelroot is, he's one of the AF guys. This guy Hacker or Free, whatever name you want to call him. This guy went to Wurzelroot's girlfriend's DMs and basically explained in intricate detail what the female orgasm is because she decided to troll him and his autism kicked in.
It is if I remember, I blocked him on Twitter because he kept he did this weird. This is always a sign to me that someone is a crazy person. If they're responding to a bunch of my threads but don't follow me, right, then that's a sign that they're kind of crazy. And he was responding always in these really dumb ways, but then he was also liking his own comments repeatedly. And I told him not to his own comments. And then he denied doing it and then liked the comment he made denying doing it. So I blocked him. And then I think he's made like 4 videos raging at me now since then.
I've only seen 2 of them, and I think I got one of them ratioed.
Yeah, I saw like 5 minutes of one of them. So if he's trying to get me to internalize these criticisms, that is not working. But people always message me whenever he releases another one. So they are out there.
He just made a video response to Uber Soy.
Well, there you go. He's expanding the. Yeah, I heard people that watch him that I don't know. I haven't really looked into him. I don't know if he has like an audience.
He's retarded.
Oh yeah, that's definitely
true. He's part of the Politically Provoked community, and I mean, you gotta be. No offense to Nikolai, but you have to be really, really retarded to get debunked and destroyed by Nikolai. No offense to Nikolai, but he's just really autistic when it comes to explaining things to normies, basically.
Could be, but yeah, there are a lot of. I feel like the politically provoked has created a very a community of like a lot of really crazy people for whatever reason.
Oh yeah. Oh, speaking of your comment on how he likes his own comments, he decided to like it. The one comment on his video was made by him, and he liked it. So he vindicated it.
He's a weird dude.
He is. I mean, he sucks at debating, and all he can do is read the abstract. So, and he doesn't understand study methodology. So, if you say that transitioning doesn't statistically well, it doesn't significantly change suicidal attempts, he won't understand that. He'll just Google search a study and look at a table, and it'll say that something along the lines of, "Oh, well, this study shows that parental support reduces suicidality by 80%, looking at a cross-sectional study of 80 people or whatever."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, the left people, when they engage in the trans issue, they have a hard time even understanding what contrary views are exactly. Like I remember in the debate that I did with I think Xander Hall, or was it? So I debated one of these people a bit ago about transgender stuff, and
I think it was
there was a huge number of huge number. There were many left-wing people who watched the debate and got mad and were convinced that what I had said was that transgender surgery causally increased the suicide rate of trans people. And I was like, I don't think I said that. And I listened back to the whole debate. I was like, no, I never said that. I still don't know why they think I said that exactly. But they were convinced. They were like trying to epically debunk this thing that I didn't even say. And in the article I have about transgenderism, I very explicitly say that's not what I mean. It was funny to see them all get like pissed about a view that I don't even hold.
I mean, it took you. How long did it take you? Like 2 months to understand their arguments, and this is their main field. They've been studying this, quote unquote, studying this for years, and it took you 2 months to just get on their level and supersede it.
Yeah, I mean, these people, like, what they mean by studying for years, I'm pretty sure what they mean is like, we have been for years occasionally reading articles published by trans activist groups.
Pretty much.
Right, and the amount of time they spent just like going to Google Scholar and typing in transgender surgery suicide and going through the first 10 pages of those results. I think they've literally never done that in any of the people that I've been debating about this stuff. So I don't think they've actually spent any time yet seriously studying it.
Give me a sec. I think my audio just stopped working for a sec. Can you hear me?
I can.
Perfect. Well, yeah, about that. I don't even think they go that far because like 90% of their research docs and 90% of their talking points basically comes from that one Cornell link, which they call a meta-analysis.
They call it. So you're talking about the what does the scholarly research say about the effect of gender transition thing being a meta-analysis? Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I mean, I guess I could see how maybe they think because there used to be a lot of like vote counting meta-analyses, and I guess you could say it's a vote counting meta-analysis of a sort, except even then it wouldn't be because there's no selection criteria, and if there was, the results wouldn't look like they did.
Apparently, there was a study. Well, not a study. I think it was more of a commentary or a preprint of sorts that showed that they didn't follow their own research criteria. So they had one thing going for it. They had one thing going for them, and they couldn't even do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they have a. Looking through it now, and I don't see anything about a real selection criteria, by which I mean like in a meta-analysis, right? Even if it was vote counting, someone listening, I guess, doesn't know, I should explain. Normally today in meta-analyses, they aggregate the effect size, so it'd be like calculating an average and combining them all that way, normally weighted by sort of how important each finding is, normally based on the standard error roughly, which is the statistical precision of the estimate, but setting that aside. But in the vote counting context, they're just counting, okay, how many results found a positive result, how many found a null result, how many found a negative, right? And typically, that is seen, well, not typically, that is universally seen as far methodologically inferior to the aggregating thing, but vote counting used to be more common in the past. But if you do any kind of meta-analysis, you have to say that you have to describe the process by which you found all these studies, and it has to be a non-biased process. So you would say, I went to this database, I typed in these search terms, and then went through this many abstracts, and that's how I found the results or whatever. And I don't see anything like that in this. And I'm inclined to think they couldn't have had a reasonable methodology. Actually, now I've just found it. Well, then now I just think they're lying. To be honest, because how is it? Okay, so they have found no studies suggesting that the suicide rate, the mental outcomes, and they include suicide as an outcome. The mental outcome gets worse as it relates to the transgender surgeries, and they say that we began by searching PubMed using transgender persons, transsexualism, sex reassignment procedures, sex reassignment surgery, and health services for transgender persons in conjunction with text words such as trans men, trans women, blah, 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 this kind of thing, which seems like a reasonable process. But then how is it that they found no negative studies and I have been able to find like 20? That seems very odd to me that they did this super thorough. But then at the same time, actually reading this, these are very bad search terms. If you're trying, none of these search terms have to do with a mental outcome. So that's actually quite weird.
In their defense, even the studies you cited still have, I think Ryan calls it regime flavor or something. Basically, when the researchers just when the researchers look at their findings and just deny them, basically.
Yeah, and that happens within the papers in terms of how they interpret them, obviously, and that's one of the reasons why you don't want to put too much stock on researchers' interpretations of the data. There's also a pretty good chance, I think you were saying this before.
That's why people
there's also a chance.
Go on.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that's why a bunch of lefties think you're misrepresenting or just lying about studies, because they just read the abstracts and the regime flavor while you actually look at the data.
That's definitely part of it. That's definitely the biggest contributor, I guess, because they don't know what the tables mean. I was also going to say, though, it often occurs, I think, with disturbing frequency that meta-analyses will just code the data wrong, and that's always kind of tedious to check, but that is a disturbingly common occurrence as well. And I think you were saying that, didn't you say that, I think Brian had looked at this and had found something like that?
I think so. I think he still has the article. The thing with Brian is that he does... he posts a lot of different stuff, but he's such a perfectionist that he deletes his entire blogs altogether. So it's kind of hard to keep track. That's why I archive everything he's ever written.
Yes, well, I can relate to that. Most of the vast majority of YouTube videos I've ever made are not up anymore for that, and it's one of the major reasons. So I become dissatisfied. Yeah. Although I'm going to try to not do that. I have an intention to just release second editions of videos in the future and change the name of the original video to first edition, like that.
Should intentionally put mistakes in there to get people to comment on it.
That's actually pretty good.
That would be quite clever.
Basically, just drop the bait on them. If they take the bait, then you get some content for the next video. If the retarded bread tuber who's dumb enough to respond to your video is dumb enough.
Oh, no, I just meant engagement numbers from your audience.
Yeah, true. I normally don't respond, though, when leftists comment on my videos. It seems kind of pointless. Yeah, and it would seem overly petty to make a video response to stupid comments.
I want to see another debate with Rose Wrist, actually.
Oh, me and him. The proposition I most want to debate with Rose Wrist is true or false. The last time we debated, you made up data that doesn't exist, And I
that
think
was
he would
Panini.
concede to that because Panini was saying that he took down the debate because, quote, he was unhappy with how they represented the study, which I take to mean he realized that I was increasingly telling people that the study just didn't exist.
Wait, did he actually say that?
Like I said, Panini, who's the other guy. So I debated Rosewrist and Panini. They were like a tag team. And then the video was taken down, and Panini was saying that the reason it was taken down was because Rosewrist was unhappy with how they had represented a study.
Oh.
And I'm filling in the blank of, it's probably
the same. That on Twitter.
Yeah, he said it on Twitter.
Oh. I mean, it still didn't stop him. His debate with JF, he did the same thing.
Yeah, and in his debate with Colette and I can't remember people's names. I think her name's Laura. Yeah. There was that. They did the same. He did that thing where he talked about the study and then denied. And when they found the study that he was talking about,
I saw that one.
Study. He has a habit of like committing fraud in the strongest sense of a debate. It's kind of weird.
It's rhetorically efficient until someone makes a response video. Then he has to backtrack and obfuscate.
Yeah, but it's it's crazy that he's kind of rising as someone who people think is approaching debate in a reasonable way. That's a poor reflection on people's ability to detect bullshit.
Clearly louse me. I actually would love to see you making a response video to the Ubersoy debunk with Kevin Bird.
Yeah, I guess I could. I still haven't actually watched it, I don't think. Several people have told me to watch it. I guess I could.
There are some parts I can respond to as well, but I think the main thing that's a little too complicated to explain to normies is the first thing, which was the relatedness disequilibrium regression paper.
Oh, right.
Hey, Wercaster, weren't you and Ryan planning on making a stream response to that, but then realized that
I forgot about that.
That paper was a little too hard to explain to normies.
Well, I didn't think it was, but Ryan did, so.
So what exactly is that paper, right? It's mostly just a new model to explain the heritability of educational attainment, right?
Yeah, basically they have a new method for assessing the heritability of various traits, and it's a pretty neat method. But I think they did some of their math wrong, and they scaled the effect sizes wrong, so it should be slightly bigger than it is. I gotta finish some statistical simulations showing that. Something I have to actually finish before I can actually just paste it at people. So
yeah, that's a difficult paper to respond to, but everything else is just pretty easy because he cited a study about permanent income and the black-white IQ gap and said, hey, if you look at people with the same permanent income, well, black and white IQs are equalized. It's like heritability of lifetime earnings just goes out the fucking window.
He said that I guess I did want to say about the linkage disequilibrium approach to the measuring heritability. Just that, and I'd have to reread the paper to make any kind of technical criticism of it. But the specific heritability of any given trait is not. Let me put it this way: if the heritability of intelligence, and it is not true, but if it was true that the heritability of intelligence within populations was quite low, it would still be the case that the evidence overwhelmingly favors the view that the difference between races is almost entirely due to genes. So that whether it is, it's a worthwhile point because in general we're interested in the heritability of traits also within populations. It's funny how in any other context the left people would be the people to very strongly emphasize the fact that there's not a strict necessary relationship between within group and between group heritability, but unless they're trying to say that the heritability is quite low. And I do think it's relevant evidence, so I'm not saying what they normally say, but just that there's so much other evidence that it would be outweighed in any case. But did you say that he said that, maybe I heard this wrong, that black and white people with the same income have the same IQ?
Something along those lines. He said that. Yeah, Kevin Bird actually said that. He reported on a study that said that if you control for permanent income differences between blacks and whites, the IQ gap vanishes. And the first thing I thought was sociologist fallacy.
It should be the opposite, because permanent income is more G-loaded than like temporary instantaneous income, because you don't have people selling their houses and shit randomly.
Yeah, also there's also, I think it's about, last time I checked, isn't the heritability of permanent income like 47%?
It's something like that. But also,
it was an economics paper which didn't control for genetic confounding. That's all you need to know.
But also, there's been a vast number of studies controlling for all kinds of different measures of socioeconomic status. And so that obviously that is a very unrepresentative result of the literature in any case.
Also, I just found out about this recently while working on my dissertation. There's actually no invariant consensus on what the SES index should comprise of, and that's why people just use a standard one with parental income, parental occupation, and.
Murray in the bell curve basically showed that even like the occupational status, educational attainment, income, like the covariance of that is like basically captures all shared environment effects with a sibling fixed effects model. So you can capture it with pretty crude measures. Although it might just be that they correlate because of G and that SES isn't really a thing.
Pretty much. I mean, Sean, didn't you write a blog post about potential environmental effects and showed that each component of socioeconomic status individually doesn't really significantly impact differences, or the differences between blacks and whites weren't enough to explain an IQ gap?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with respect to income, and there's just the net weight of the experimental evidence. There is experimental evidence suggests that changes in income don't actually cause changes in cognitive ability in a reliable way. So the correlation is just non-causal. In the case of education, there's a better case, although, and we would, sort of in the weeds and say, well, but the increase in IQ due to education is not on G, and the racial differences in G, but also just setting that aside, that would only contribute to the gap insofar as black people are unfairly disadvantaged with respect to educational opportunity. Obviously, I have a whole spiel about how the opposite is true, and therefore that variable can't be causing you to have a lower IQ. So that, yeah, like with socioeconomic status, if you break it down into individual factors, it's like either the factor doesn't matter or blacks are advantaged with respect to it. So the idea that it's causally explaining the difference is silly.
Yeah, it's not like these guys are ever going to read it. I mean, look at the people you debated. Like, I don't think anyone has ever read your articles or your blog posts.
Well, Stardust definitely did, but other than her, I think you are correct.
She didn't really do much of a good job.
No,
well, I'll give her credit for the background check.
She read them poorly, but she did attempt to read them. I've seen clips where she had like a big whiteboard out. It was like drawn big argument maps based on her understanding of the things that I had said in the blog and stuff. And it was really weird because she just didn't understand what I was saying, even though it was in plain English. Which, to be fair, I don't think it's because she's like an idiot. I think it's because she was live on stream, and idiots who were watching her were constantly yelling out what I was really saying, and she seemingly didn't want to just, for whatever reason, didn't just point out that what they were saying was dumb and not what I was saying, and so she ended up doing a bunch of work trying to prepare for the debate and then coming in with a false idea about what I was going to say. It was bizarre.
One of her sims ended up stalking you for a couple months.
Oh, I did not realize that. But okay.
Didn't you have a bunch of Twitter stock accounts called Rots and Peace or Sean Last 30 Seconds?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah. Another crazy person. Yeah, that dude was super crazy.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Is he still out there or?
I do not know. I've not. He is hopefully. I think he's moved on to stalking someone else, but I don't know for sure.
Unless he debates Stardust again.
Yeah,
I
maybe
think one of
that'll
my
be.
favorite debates. I think one of my favorite debates of yours has got to be the Jangles one because Jangles has always framed himself as like the I fucking love science gay guy. So when he debated Milo, he just spurred out about different studies, and then when he debated you, he just said, "Oh, I've never heard of this. Oh, I've never heard of this. Oh, I do not believe this." Basically that. So it was pretty good to see you just just put him in his place. Honestly.
I don't remember. See, I can't tell. For some reason, the debate between Xander Hall and the debate between Jangle is like melded in my mind, and I can't remember which one is which.
Jangles was the systemic one, and Xander Hall was the tranny one.
Yeah, I can't remember anything really about the Jangles debate. Then I'm sure it was stupid, but I can't remember much about
Don't
it.
you remember? He said when you said that income and basically socioeconomic status differences tend to have a genetic component. He just said, "Well, I don't believe that." And when you said it's the consensus, he continued to deny it.
That's happened a few times in debates when I've talked about the heritability of socioeconomic status, and leftists are just basically wowing at me in response. It was a great paper that I guess was from 2021, but I didn't know about it until the other day because there was an article about it on UNS from Gregory Clark, providing really strong and evidence in a really cool, novel way that the transmission of socioeconomic status in England between the years 1750 and 2010 was basically just exclusively due to genes, and the environment wasn't worth shit. Which was cool. Result like that.
It's by Gregory Clark, right?
Yes, that is true.
The paper or the UN's review because
oh no, the review is by
James Thompson.
Thompson. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see his stuff a lot. Well, I haven't read any of his stuff I haven't read any of his stuff until since after I learned stats, but his stuff, his summaries are pretty good for Normans, so that's good.
Oh yeah. No, I think everything I've read by him has been good stuff. He covers science in a good way. But yeah, what Clark did, I mean, basically he said, look, we can get this data from England, and it's on 402,000 people, and this data on all these different ancestors, and if it's just genetics and the environment isn't worth basically anything, then of course your similarity in something like wealth is going to just be a function of your genetic distance, and that makes very specific predictions that are very hard to explain on any other hypothesis. It makes the prediction that your correlation in wealth is going to be the same when you're comparing yourself to your uncle and your grandfather, also your great-grandfather and your cousin, even though you probably met your cousin and never met your great-grandparent. Also, your great-great-grandparent is going to be exactly midway between that correlation that your cousin and great-grandparent share on the one hand, and then the lesser correlation that is shared by your second cousins and your great-great-great-grandparent, which are also going to be the exact same. Right? It makes all these very specific predictions about where the correlations are going to line up, and then the data just fits it perfectly. So that it's like, well, I thought it was a very cool. It what, sir?
People will still find a way to deny it.
Oh, sure, you can't force someone to believe it, but
I've seen some of the hereditary deniers on Twitter back in like 2020 and 2021. I mean, they're still spurring out about the equal environments assumption and all that.
Yeah.
Which, once the RDR paper or regression disequilibrium paper is dealt with, that's like should be pretty convincing. It's like you don't even have to look into the normal stuff with it.
Well, I mean, in this particular case, right, the equal environment assumption doesn't even play into Clark's methodology. It's just the genetic relatedness of relatives, which there's not controversy about that. Not serious controversy anyway. But yeah, the equal environment assumption, if they're still harping on that, then that's just, they don't care. They don't care about reality. There's no way to force them to. That was answered so long ago. Sorry?
I mean, Jay Joseph still spurts out about it, but he's literally the only one. Him and Richardson, basically.
Yes, I think Jay Joseph is probably a true believer and a crazy person, and that probably Richardson is a fraud. So that's my opinion of those two people. Richardson, he has such a shit. He has this paper. I'm sure you guys have seen it about the relationship between a job performance and IQ, and it's so bad. It's just ridiculous.
Wait, didn't he actually report on a couple studies and just completely misrepresent them?
Yeah, he did. Hence it being ridiculous. He lies about that, and he lies about studies he did report on, and he omits things that are, things that you just can't omit if you're trying to be an intellectually honest person reviewing that kind of literature. And I remember one of the things he does is he tries to say that it doesn't correlate with job performance because there was some meta-analysis like 30 years ago that found a non-significant correlation with IQ and job performance in consumer sales. Now, in the first place, consumer sales, that's about as un-G-loaded a task as you're going to find in a lot of ways. So that wouldn't be particularly problematic for the general theory, I don't think, even if it was true. But then on top of that, there have since been meta-analyses that have shown that that's just not true anyway, with better and more recent data and a larger sample of data and such. And I find it very hard to believe that he somehow only knows about the research relating to this specific job in IQ from 30 years ago. That seems unlikely to me, so I think he probably just omitted it because he's an asshole.
Aren't they all?
I mean, yeah. But...
Yeah, basically nothing they say is of any value. Maybe Kevin Bird because he just bleeds people dry. He just annoys the shit out of people on Twitter and tries to get people fired. So I think he's the only one that people actually take seriously just because of that. But if you've ever seen him debate, he sucks at it. There was even
it is true. It's true, and I don't say this about most issues, but it is true on the race and IQ race realism front that there is not a serious opposition. There is an opposition, but it is exclusively consisting of people who are either dumb or dishonest. And those are the only two sorts of, in terms of people who've spent time, actually digesting this material. If you just don't know, then obviously you're just ignorant, and that's fine. If you spend time digesting this stuff, the most, and they're not that serious a problem. The most serious problems for hereditarianism get discovered pretty consistently by hereditarians and not by these environmentalists because they're not even trying to figure out what's true to begin with. It's so ridiculous that there's not. It doesn't feel like a real debate. You read books by people like Nisbet or articles by like Turkheimer or papers by Kevin Bird. And it's just like, okay, so none of you are taking this seriously at all. None of you actually care what is true. This is all just a joke to literally all of you. Okay.
I mean, it kind of makes sense since if you look at Jensen's old work, it debunks stuff from 30 years in the future. So that's how well the G factor has aged.
Oh, yeah. Jensen obviously did a lot of foundational, very important work in the area. The G factor is a cool.
And people still misrepresent what he says. Sometimes intentionally.
Oh, yeah. No one's ever going to know what Jensen said or what, Murray and Herrnstein said. Basically. they're going to forever be known for saying something they didn't say.
I mean, Murray has tried to backpedal a lot, and that has not worked. I mean, you could put him on Tucker Carlson's show, and he'll talk about individualism, and people still think he's some sort of ethno-nationalist or something.
Yeah, and he does kind of go a little bit back and forth, I feel like, in terms of how much he leans into the genes and racism kind of thing.
Yeah.
But he never leans in that. He never actually, I would say, he never leans in so hard as to not say stupid shit. Like when he says, "Oh, these are just group differences, and these don't tell you anything about an individual." It's like, well, what are the groups of? Where'd the group data come from? Not the individual. I'm pretty sure it came from the individuals. I'm pretty sure they were the basis of the data. And the group difference literally means it helps you predict what the individuals in that group will be like. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what it means. But okay, Charles. This is what a silly thing to say.
I mean, he also said that the black-white IQ gap has narrowed down since the 20th century or something. And he uses
very silly analysis of that, where he was just like, yes, it's just in the 70s in his analysis, the tests were all very G-loaded, and then as you increased of time, he was increasingly using tests that were less G-loaded, and lo and behold, the group difference, which is in G, decreased over time doing it that way. But if you restrict the analysis the whole time to just highly G-loaded tests, there was no decline. It's a very silly thing for him to do, especially because he really should know better, given his past work.
Has he ever written anything about hereditarianism since his last book? I haven't been following his stuff.
Well, that book was like a year ago, wasn't it? And it was just about hereditarianism. So
not
I don't think so.
Like Race and Crime. That's about it.
Was it about? Didn't he have a book out about genetics and race?
Oh yeah, human diversity, but he barely touched upon it.
Oh, really? It's called. I mean, I haven't read it, but it's called The Biology.
It's been a while since I read it. It's Human Diversity: The Biology of Race, Sex, and Class, or something like that. And I haven't read it in a while, and all I remember from it is a review by Dutton, which said that he was kind of playing it safe on the race stuff.
I just assumed based on the subtitle, The Biology of Gender, Race, and Class, that he was really going into it. But like I said, I didn't really read it, so I don't know for sure.
His most recent book was, which one was it? Two Truths About Race in America, and all he does is talk about race and IQ. And not even the good type. He just says that, okay, so blacks have a slightly lower IQ than whites, and there are race differences in crime and in the market. And in the labor markets, and that's it. He doesn't talk about genes or environment. And the people who haven't read it just still calls him.
I mean, it is. To be fair, it is true that America hasn't even internalized those facts. Setting alone why it is the case, we haven't even internalized that we need some explanation for why, relatively speaking, certain groups tend to be more likely to be full of people that are dumb and violent. And there's just mass denial about that. I mean, if you say it like, okay, class, today we're going to talk about how, if a professor was to say it, we're going to say genes are probably not the explanation for why black people tend to be dumb and violent. Right? That is a very cancelable offense when you put it like that. Even though that is the position of environmentalists.
Didn't that actually happen though? There was a chemistry. Wasn't there a chemistry professor who talked about the black-white IQ gap? Nothing about the nature or nurture of it, but just talked about the 15-point gap as a fact, and he ended up getting fired. I remember either Jared Taylor or Nick talking about this a while back. And, yeah.
Yeah, people are crazy. People are insane.
I think the environmentalist position is also kind of retarded. It's basically saying something along the lines of, well, the reason these people are overwhelmingly stupid and violent is because of stereotype threat, because people perceive them as violent and stupid.
Yeah, that'd be super crazy. That'd be a very silly thing to say. And it's funny. Like the environmentalist position, typically the so-called environmentalist position, the position of people like Turkheimer and Bird and these sorts of people, I don't even think is that we know that genes aren't why they're relatively dumb and violent. It's that we don't know for sure that genes are why they're dumb and violent. It could be the environment or genes. We don't have a way to tell yet. But it's funny that none of them. I know that's Destiny's view that that he doesn't feel like we can know, but none of them then try to form their politics from a place of like 50-50. Who knows? Could be genes.
What is Avi's view on this? Because he says he's open to the genetic explanation, but he's still agnostic.
Well, I guess that's his view on it. Yeah, I didn't know, but I guess that is his view.
I haven't seen him debate it. I think he debated Bloom on Discord chat a year ago, and that's about it. That's all I remember.
Yeah, I don't know. I've mostly seen him talk about vaccines and veganism. Seem to be his two pet. Well, it's what my perception of his topics are.
And trannies.
Yeah, he talks about tranny stuff. Or at least he's talked to me about tranny stuff.
It's weird how he has. It's kind of weird how he has you listed as people. It's kind of weird how he has you listed on his Discord, quote unquote, Hall of Shame from the people who refuse to debate him, even though you're banned from Discord.
Yeah. I mean, we were kind of talking about this earlier. A, I'm banned from Discord. B, I've already debated him, so that's a really weird thing to say. And then C, I've said multiple times I would debate him. There's always been this weird, well, I don't always, just, it hasn't happened, basically. The last time it happened, we were ironing out exactly what it would be. We ironed it out. Then the thread didn't go anywhere, and I guess he feels that I was supposed to say something else in response, and because I didn't respond in a thread where I already explicitly said that I would debate him, that was like dodging him, which to me seems gay and retarded, but whatever. That's my position still, but I will debate him if he really wants to, although I
could probably get politically provoked to set something up.
Yeah, I mean, I will if people want. I don't think it's going to be like a productive debate. Because some people think, oh, well, he actually cares about studies, so it'll be like a real productive debate. I very much doubt that, but I debate people that I don't think it'll be a productive debate all the time. So I'm not going to refuse to debate them on those grounds.
I mean, 90% of the people you've debated either on race or transgenderism end up just not understanding anything at all. So this wouldn't be very different from that.
Well, I don't think he would understand it all. I mean, I think he's a different. I just don't have a very high perception of his honesty. It's a different kind of unproductivity. Like I remember, just to give people an idea of why I might feel that way. This was during the early or mid, I don't know when it was. It was while COVID was still a big news story and people were arguing about the vaccines. And there was research coming out suggesting that the booster variant, there's the original vaccine, that after a certain number of months, the people who had gotten the vaccine were more likely than average, the people who hadn't gotten the vaccine, that is, rather, to get COVID. And I don't know if that result is held up. There were a few papers saying that at the time. Now I was tweeting about this, and then he tweeted a response, and he's like, actually, this has been shown to be fake news. And he linked the study, and he did a screenshot from the study showing for a vaccine that, and it was done in some different way. I don't remember what the methodological difference was, but he was saying that this is the methodological difference that mattered. And it showed a vaccine where that had not been found for, right? The same finding did not replicate. But then I opened the study up, and I found out that the study was on 3 vaccines, and that the paper had found the trend into negativity for 2 of the 3 vaccines. And what he had done is to screenshot the one for which that was untrue and not mention the other 2, as if, so that's the kind of thing that I've seen him do, where it's like, okay, well, I don't really think you care. This seems a bit dishonest to me.
He has a habit of doing that. Oh, Bloom's in the live stream. Yo, Bloom, you want to talk about your Avi debate from last year? We were just talking about it a while back, so.
You're still alive?
I am still alive. They tried to kick me off of Instagram, except that doesn't kill me.
All right, Goldberg.
Dude, when I talked to Avi about race and IQ, he would not agree to some of the most basic premises. For example, that it's possible for there to be a between group heritability that exceeds 100%. Like, this is very simple. Like, say, if you raised me in like the best environment possible, and say you raised LeBron James in the worst environment possible, and he still turns out to be a better basketball player, like, the percentage of like difference in basketball skills between us, that would be over 100% due to genetics. I don't know why it's like rocket science to him, and he's like, no, like, by definition, a proportion has to be out of 100%. And I'm just like, dude, it was one of the most frustrating conversations I ever had.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird. I mean, how would you quantitatively express it if it were the case that under the condition of equal environmental opportunity, the group difference, say, between black and white and IQ would be larger than it is now? Right, presumably, a heritability of 100%.
That was the thing that I was trying to say. Like, we can autistically fixate about the definitions of like what is a proportion, except at the end of the day, it is more than reasonable to assume that, like, based on current school funding information, based on sort of how people are just kind of treated by society, that it is quite possible that between group heritability does exceed 100%.
Yeah, and how you want to express that? I'm hearing myself echo, like, very strongly.
I just muted myself and it wasn't me.
Wait, let me check.
Is it happening now? It is not happening right now. So it has been fixed. Whatever.
Give me a sec. I'll go change my
Headphones. Blown.
Oh, I was just going to say the proportion thing. It's kind of like, okay, regardless of how exactly you want to square the definition of a proportion, I see the kind of autistic point being made, but it's like, you know what we're trying to say. You know what is being said. Can we just talk about the fact that is being proposed, right? Also, very base. You're arguing that the heritability is over 100%. I agree with that, but the vast majority of hereditarians say some number like 50% or 80% or something. So, yeah, based.
No, because, I mean, here's my thing is when people say it's like anything really under like 80 or 90, how do you get that without systemic racism? Because that's what it is it would all be basically gene environment correlations that we have as these environmental differences, unless there's like systemic racism going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I switched headphones. Is my audio better now?
Don't think
Well,
it was
the real
you to
question-
begin with. But
You sounded fine. It was just there was a crazy echo going on from someone. I'm still not sure who.
Either way, at least the echo's gone now.
Yes, we've removed the echoes.
So yeah, I don't think there's anyone left. Well, I don't think there's anyone at all on the left that can pose a challenge to you. Honestly, you're just too good.
That seems like a very narcissistic step. Let's just say there aren't leftists who are posing a serious challenge to race realism. Not specifically me.
I mean, it's the same thing. You're essentially the face of YouTube race realism, since Ryan is not that good with life debates.
That is a weird thing to say, and I would never think of myself that way.
I mean, who else debates race realism as frequently as you do online?
Oh, I don't know. I don't follow. I don't follow like these debates really beyond when they ask me to do them.
So there could be a secret race realism scene in like Poland or something that nobody knows about because they don't speak Polish or something.
I'm pretty sure there's one.
True. Or China.
Or like Laos.
Actually, I think that there's a non-secret community of race realists in China. It's called Chinese anthropologists.
I mean, it is true. They recognize race and they are very, very fixated on eugenics. So I got to give them respect for that. I think Singapore is also somewhat race realist because if you look at one of their previous leaders, he used to talk about the innateness of intelligence. He used to talk about Robert Plomin's stuff a lot.
And there's kind of a weird fixation that maybe this isn't representative, but my perception of the sort of Chinese genetic scene is that there's a weird fixation with trying to show that the Han Chinese have not really genetically changed since like 1000 BC or something, and that the genomes are the exact same now as they are in the fossils and stuff like that, which is I think a funny thing to be very preoccupied with, but also just speaks to the degree to which they sort of take this gene stuff seriously.
I mean, it makes sense for their sort of political formula over there.
Let's see, what else is there to talk about?
I could go into the details of the secret Liberian paper. The grammar is kind of a mouthful to even talk about, though.
I think before that we should talk about the Dario debate, since that was supposed to be like the initial topic of this live stream, and I ended up going on autistic tangents. But
I don't watch debates, so I'm not going to be able to contribute at all.
I mean, the Dario debate was very, very interesting. That's all I can say.
I thought it was just retarded as hell.
Oh, I was just going to say, watching these debates, it's one of the most painful experiences ever. It's like you see these people, they cite papers that they haven't read. If you ask them like any questions like, what was the study design, they cannot answer the question. It's a painful experience to watch.
Yeah, I just find it painful to watch people just do bad, even if I disagree with them. It's just not enjoyable for me.
I think the Fanatic one was hilarious, though. I made a bunch of buck-breaking jokes as a result of that.
That was that was funny. Yeah. He did things that a white debater would not do, like at the end when he started going on about like white women dating black men and stuff. Just
bigger dicks. Genetically bigger dicks. He literally used the Medic argument.
Yeah, it was bizarre. And it's so funny. Like, he was going on about that historical racism stuff, and he just assumed that these various supposed programs of the 1930s and shit had some in 40s had a big effect. Never bothered to check if it had an effect.
And he kept it was not.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was dumb. What can you say? At least in the live, maybe he's not like dumb in general, but in the live debate setting, he did not know how to deal, and so he just decided to act like an idiot.
I think he's the perfect. I think he is. I think he makes race realism. He makes the whole race and IQ stuff pretty evident, at least for newcomers. Because if you talk about like genetic differences between the races, which predispose them to having certain dysgenic traits, and then you have a guy with with evidently poor IQ, poor impulse control, just spurting out. I mean, what does that say?
You could view it that way, although I don't think that would be a particularly, civil way of viewing it. At least for me to make that kind of argument in the debate would, I think, be a poor idea.
Oh no, you shouldn't. But I remember watching that debate, and one of my friends actually super chatted a lot of insults to Fanatic, and it was pretty funny to watch. There was a lot of buck breaking memes. Honestly, I felt sorry for the guy because of all the of all the inoptical super chats he got.
Crazy how there's this whole community of left wing stream debaters who are people who are interested in being streamers but aren't interested in researching politics, and so none of them know about anything. And it's just it's weird that community. I don't know. I just can't get over the fact that community exists. I guess it's weird to me to have all these people who spend all this time debating about politics and never know even the basic facts on the issues at all. And even not only do they debate politics, they have this pretense of the exact opposite of being very research based. And then it's then like the king of this, I guess, is Destiny. Maybe it's Vouch now. One of them too.
Vouch quite literally understands nothing. If you look at his quote unquote study debunks, he doesn't really explain things well. He looked at a Heritage Foundation study on transgenderism and said, "Well, this study isn't peer reviewed. Like you have a sociology degree. What are you gonna say?"
I've only met one sociology major in my life, and it was this chick that was fucking my freshman roommate who was black, and I was like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. Fucking black guys.
Scientific rigor is to sociology majors what broccoli is to children.
Yeah, I suppose I've never sociology.
Is there a way to turn scientific rigor into an airplane and just make the boy eat the broccoli? Thought so. But yeah, I haven't come across any sociology majors over here. Not going to disclose my location, but I've come across some gender studies people and some criminology people, but I mean, it's pretty self-evident and stereotypical, but they're all trannies.
I remember when I was like 19 or so, and I was trying to figure out, I was trying to investigate sociology and evaluate it as a field. And so I bought a couple sociology textbooks. And they were all so weird because they had these method sections where they talked about methodology, and then the rest of the book was them just saying things. That gave me a very poor view of sociology.
Many such cases in sociology.
Somebody sent me a picture of their sociology textbook. It was authored by Pearson not too long ago that basically said that the black-white IQ gap, they gave like the Wilfred Riley take on it, where it's like, actually the gap is like 4 to 7 points. I'm just like, dude, who the hell believes that?
Wait, does Wilfred Riley actually believe it's 4 to 7 points?
I believe
so. I thought he said it was 12 points.
He has a tweet where he says it's 4 to 7, or it's most likely 4 to 7 points. I can pull up the tweet.
Dude, like 4 to 7 points due to genes, or
no, like the phenotypic gap being 4 to 7 points.
Dear God.
Riley is another very, I don't know, he's like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to, he's like a bitch is what I want to say. I was trying to think of a nicer way to say it. That's why I want he is such a bitch. He blocked me because I pointed out that he was talking about, he was talking about polygenic scores, and he was accusing the polygenic scores of being calculated in samples where they didn't account for like racial differences in gene frequencies because he didn't realize, and you might think, oh, he doesn't realize that actually they're done initially on just white samples. But in fact, that had already been pointed out to him several times. And so I said, oh, you're lying about this. And then he freaked out and blocked me. And so that's why I call him a bitch. But yeah, his stuff is also very dumb.
I know he recently wrote an article that said like racial differences and like income and all these other things go away when you like control for things like age and a couple of other things. No, they don't. Like the differences in crime rates are a lot more than age.
Jeez. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's like those differences are actually probably one of the only ones aside from skin color that are larger than the IQ gap.
He's big on the Flynn effect too. I remember he talks about that a lot.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I don't think that he understands the concept of a latent variable.
Or measurement invariance for that matter.
No, but even if you don't understand any of that stuff, it's just okay. So now I am hearing myself again. Very clearly.
Let me mute myself.
Yeah.
Try again.
No, I think it is Bloom's mic. That is my hypothesis. Oh, I was just going to say that it's such a weird idea, though. Even if you don't understand any of that more technical stuff, to me it'd be like saying, well, the height difference between American whites and pygmies, you think that's due to genes? Lol, bro, the environment greatly increased height in many countries across the 20th century. And I'd look at you like you were a crazy person. Okay. Yeah, we're not, in principle, height could be changed by the environment. It has nothing to do, and it has been before, but there's nothing to do with whether a particular difference is due to the genes or the environment. It's just a weird thing that the fact that anyone thinks that is relevant and a like important point to make. The fun effect, we didn't need to observe it. The fact that the heritability is not one tells us that if you greatly improve the environment, IQ will raise. Okay, but that just doesn't tell us if a particular difference is due to genes of the environment. The fact that this argument has been popularized is a testament to the fact that people are just not that bright. There's no other way to explain that. That's just you're not thinking about this very clearly. And back in the day, obviously Flynn and Thomas Sowell, I think, are the two people most responsible for popularizing it in different audiences.
Luckily, no one talks about the Flynn effect anymore nowadays.
The guy that did something with Eric Turkheimer calling like Emil Pesta and a couple other
Gian Grande.
racist. Yeah, that guy. He did something about the Flynn effect recently.
There is a pretty large meta-analysis about the Flynn effect recently.
Oh,
there was? Okay. Because the paper that I wrote, it was like looking at it was like a longitudinal analysis of like Flynn effects from like just revisiting a sample that peculiar findings have been found that it was like the one that the Turkheimer 2003 study was done with.
go on.
Yeah, you cut out if you were still talking.
I think there was a car. There was a car in his.
Oh yeah, there was a
lens.
car. I'm on vacation and I'm right next to a highway. But whatever. I mean, it was just revisiting like really non-representative samples and like looking at patterns with the Flynn effect in it, trying to do some sort of causal design with Flynn effect research, which I'm not really sure how you would actually do that.
In terms of the Flynn effect causing what?
I don't even remember. I viewed this paper like 9 months ago. It was on par with basically standard Scar-Rowe kind of research in terms of quality. Like it was not causal design, and the authors just said this is a causal design. I think that it was saying that like socioeconomic status causes the Flynn effect or something like that.
Well, we have, yeah. Okay, I gotcha. I mean, I think we have good evidence for the Flynn effect that that's not true because increases in national IQ precede increases in national economic development, but the opposite of that is not true. So.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Have any of you guys seen the rubrics for evaluating diversity statements when you apply to work in like academic kind of research jobs?
Wait, say again. I mean, if you're asking me if I've seen those on like job applications before, I have.
Like the specific rubrics that they actually use when they like basically grade your diversity statements as an applicant.
Oh no, you could probably. The reason they have that is because of ESG scores. They probably tailor it to ESG scores in order to like increase their stock price or whatever. So you could probably like find it on BlackRock's website or whatever.
No, what I was saying is when you apply like to work at like a, so when I was applying to work at medicals for research stuff, I had to write diversity statements. They have rubrics that they use to evaluate your diversity statement. Like you get points based on how much of a faggot you are. Have you seen these rubrics before? Like I read them and I was just shocked how ridiculous they were.
No, I've not seen them. No.
I'll send you like a PDF of one.
I'm sure it's like more prominent in academia than other places.
Yeah, I literally could not get callbacks if I didn't put my pronouns at the end of an email, which was it's always weird to me talking to academics. Now I'm not even pursuing that path. And then when you get a job offer from them, they offer you like a shit pay anyways. But they don't understand how pronouns work. Like they want you to put pronouns at the end of an email, but when you're talking to me, you don't refer to me as he or him. Like that makes no sense. If you're talking about me behind my back, I don't care if you misgender me. I really think that academics, they don't seem to understand when we use pronouns in the English language. But I could not get responses if I didn't put my pronouns in my emails.
Jesus.
These are good reasons to not become involved with academia. It is run by crazy people.
I mean, you gotta fix the system from within. Infiltrate and subvert.
Or we could let it.
Disagree.
We could just let it proceed to crash and burn. Honestly, like
Agree.
A college degree for a very substantial proportion of people that go there is not worth it. I think it'll be a matter of time before people start realizing this in very large numbers. It's happening to a degree already, but in large numbers, like say a 10% decrease in new students year over year.
I mean, I think for most people, maybe we have a disagreement that most people can get a reasonable economic return on a college degree. What they should do the ideal thing would be to go to community college for 2 years, then transfer to a decent public university. And then lots of employers do care about that, right? And so your income is going to be significantly greater based on, maybe there's research falsifying that. The research I've seen suggests that, but maybe I have not seen the right papers.
I mean, if enrollment numbers are going down, that's one thing. But Kaplan's book is pretty recent, and it basically documented that the returns were even going up over time. Just because
that sounds like a reason to go. Ideally, we shouldn't have to, because it's all, as Kaplan argues, a lot of the benefit is just signaling. We could do that in a much more efficient way if we weren't all so gay, but we are so gay, and so this is how we're going to do it, apparently.
Unfortunately. And that's why I'm working for my master's degree. Not because it's smarter, but for status and whatnot.
I was going to say, though, people should, if you're, there's no hope for reality retaking its grasp on academia. You might think, we can do what leftists did back in the day, but leftists had to infiltrate an academia that was comprised of these classically liberally oriented people that talked about the free marketplace of ideas and tolerance was the greatest virtue and all of this stuff. They did not infiltrate a academia that was comprised of like ruthless, evil dogmatists who are obsessed with finding people who don't agree with them on the minor details and excluding those people from the community. It is much harder to do in that context. I think just not worth the effort. It's best to just create alternative, outlets for intellectual output, and over time, those are growing in popularity. I think that's a more viable strategy.
At the end of the day, it just proves that liberals are horrendous at gatekeeping.
Yeah, which people knew back in the day. There were lots of predictions way back when that the ultimate fate of liberalism would be to be destroyed from within if it wasn't destroyed from the outside because of its weird relationship with tolerance. And lo and behold, that happened. Or is happening.
Massive black pill, honestly. I mean, every single institution is basically against us, so I think that one dream everyone had of, infiltrating and subverting over a large period of time, kind of blackpilled about that. But I mean, on the bright side, there's alternative culture like Cozy and like the online ride and meme culture and all that Zoomer stuff. That's pretty much the silver lining to all of that, because a lot of people with edgy senses of humor are getting dragged into that pipeline, which is pretty good for them, for the most part.
I'm not really sure that public opinion matters, so...
I have my own criticisms of paleocons, but at least they're getting people less mentally ill.
Well, I mean, a subset of public opinion matters, right? Maybe you want to say only elite opinion matters, but nonetheless, we need to convince elite people then, and one way to do that is to convince lots of people, and some of them will be elite. It's hard to specifically target and only convince elite people.
Pretty much. I think America First is doing pretty good with their stuff. I mean, they're already having dinners with congressmen. The only issue is they have a lot of, well, it's not their fault, but there are a lot of organizations that try to copy them. And honestly, America First is primarily about keeping America majority Christian as well as majority white. So if you look at these,
they can't even keep their own movement majority white.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, if you look at these these AF clones, like American Populist Union, who changed their name to American Cause and changed their name to American Consciousness. Wait, no, not consciousness, American Conscience, and then they changed their name again to American Virtue. That movement is led by a Vietnamese guy talking about securing the existence of our people. Well, not literally. I'm just he talks about demographics and talks about our heritage, quote unquote. The Vietnamese guy.
And on top of that, like you were saying, most of them will say that ultimately the most important thing is Christian values, which...
Those guys won't even say that. They say the most important thing is class.
Well, that's even worse. Yeah.
Maybe
Christianity are not good building blocks. Things,
more people will save the white race.
Yeah, I wish we could have an actual, I mean, this is how I think about my own politics, is lightly elitist, in the sense that most of the problems of society are caused by, the bottom 10%. And then I wish we could just all rally the other 90% against them. And that was the major political program of our society, but there's no appetite for that at all. People who are at the 50th percentile love to imagine that their problems are with the top 10% instead of the bottom 10% for whatever bizarre reason.
Or you can just blame the Jews.
Well, that is not what most people in the 50th percentile do, but sure, there are people that go that route. And obviously, our Jewish friends have some of them have done some problematic things.
Yes, they have. I mean, the one thing I'm going to say about the JQ is that people who try to get too much into it end up becoming psychos.
That they do, but the Jew, what have Jewish intellectuals insofar? Not all Jews and blah blah blah, but the Jewish intellectuals that we're talking about, what have they done? And what they've done is to further these ideologies that try to make heroes out of the bottom 10%, basically. Right? Make heroes out of poor people and fat people and gay people and black people, and get in a list of all these different. And no, not all black people in the bottom 10%, blah blah blah. But you know what I mean?
Black disabled beings.
And that's just the opposite of what the ideology should be. And the populist stuff on the right. I mean, I hate the populist stuff on the right in so many ways because it is obsessed with and then they always discuss policies from. But how is this going to affect a poor motherfucker in a trailer? There's no value to what happens to poor motherfuckers in trailers, but that is not the primary outcome I'm concerned with ever, considering any policy. Because that's not the vast majority of people, A, that I care about, and B, that's not even the vast majority of people, period, in this country. It's weird that's going to be, the criteria.
It's not about
ordinary Americans. They refer to 5% of the people. That's their favorite term now. I think MTG says it the most, but ordinary Americans, they're like refer no more than 5% of the people. It's like white people making between $30,000 and $50,000 dollars a year.
Yeah, that is obviously not good. The way they talk, a bunch of I talk to people sometimes about like drug policy stuff and how they how people, I think very naturally for some reason, oriented around a very small minority of people, because the basic situation with most illicit drugs seems to be that normal people can take them in a safe way and not get addicted to them, and there's a little minority group of people for whom that is not true. Now, funnily, these are also the people who are most likely to do the drugs, even if they are illegal. But setting that question aside, even if that wasn't true, it's not obvious to me that we would want to restrict everyone's rights on the basis of, 10% of people. It's actually less than 10%, but something like 10% of people who can't handle some experience. Seems lame. But the same thing with all the issues are like this. The minimum wage. Is minimum wage raising a good idea? I don't know. Will that actually help poor people or hurt poor people? I was like, well, also, how about like everyone else? How does it affect all the non-poor people? The people don't care about that stuff. All the issues are analyzed from this kind of perspective in the mainstream. Sorry, what?
Didn't you have a video from years back on the minimum wage?
I have had a video on the minimum. I mean, yeah, I've talked about the minimum wage in a couple videos. If we're talking about videos from like 10 years ago when I used to do more on the economic front.
Did your opinions change since then?
Because there was a period where I was just very strongly counter-signaling libertarianism because I was a libertarian, then I fell out of it. And I think the video, and this is me trying to remember what I said like literally 12 years ago, so this could be wrong, but I think what the video said was basically that conservatives will tell you that if you increase the amount you have to pay for a given productivity of labor, a given person's work, then of course people are going to buy less of it. But what they're not considering is that if you increase the amount you're paying someone, they'll actually work harder, and so there isn't a constant thing called this person's labor that you can compare in that way across, And I think that's a plausible critique of the conceptual argument. But then you look at firstly you look at the empirical results, right? That's the most important thing, and it does seem to be true that minimum wages somewhat increase unemployment among poor people. But then also, more importantly, it's true that minimum wages seem to increase prices that regular people have to pay for everything, and of course decrease the income of business owners. And so mostly for those two reasons, I don't like minimum wages.
Fair enough.
Also, it's so easy to not make the minimum wage. People, the American economy, it's not easy to be rich, but it is so easy to not be poor. And this isn't like a study, it's just
observation.
I've been in the economy. It's really easy to not be poor. I can't believe there are adults working minimum wage. It just blows my mind. When people say, it's like, okay, sure, you're poor. That's not the biggest problem here. The biggest problem here is whatever catastrophic failure of being has led you to be a 27-year-old with 2 kids on the minimum wage. That is the crisis, is your existence. not that you're poor.
According to
Like, if you
Lester,
just were,
genocide.
I remember the first time I realized this, I was, I think, 13, and I was working my first job, which was at a McDonald's, and I was talking to the manager who, had like a middle class income, and I was asking him how he became the manager, and he's like, "Oh, I just worked at this McDonald's for a couple years, and wasn't a screw up as I did so they kept promoting me." I was like, "Oh, you can just work at a fast food, right? Like, you can work anywhere for a number of years and either get promoted there or apply somewhere else, and like, in a matter of just a handful of years, not be poor. Anyone can do this as long as you're not like physically disabled."
Yeah, that makes sense. It's pretty easy to. It's honestly, in my experience, it's pretty easy to not be poor as well. All you have to do is you just have to have a little bit of financial literacy. Just don't spend your money on crack and alcohol.
Yeah, and most people, even in the American economy today, most people born into poverty don't stay in that poverty. So most people manage to do that, to get out of poverty that are born into it. Obviously, poverty in the sense of the American poverty line. But we have so much ideology focused around this idea that people can't get out of it. There's a poverty trap, and it's so unfair, and it's the number one problem in some respects. And then like we said before,
wasn't like the original definition of poverty supposed to be like you're so poor that it's impossible to stop being poor because the poorness prevents you from doing so?
Now, I mean, nowadays,
like, in that sense,
nowadays the definition is basically you don't. It's not just that you don't have money, but your external environment prevents you from reaching your full potential. That's basically what poverty is defined as now. I think it's dumb.
Yeah, and obviously they raised the poverty line over time. So we will never get rid of poverty because poverty is basically just defined as the bottom fifth or whatever.
Poverty is a social construct, is what you're saying.
So true. How
and then yeah, if it's
made?
Like there was obviously a lot of Christian right activity recently surrounding abortion, which has been fun to see liberals be mad, but it's also been depressing to see conservatives be happy. So
it's good to see women crying, honestly. I mean, I had a bit of a personal experience, which is one time I went on vacation and I met some friends. This was a few months ago, and basically we were hanging out, and one of them got drunk and asked me for my political views. My biggest mistake was to actually be honest, and then we started talking about abortion, and then the girl started talking about her rape, and she's really good at gaslighting, from what I've been told. So basically, she told me about. She went on and on about how if she gave birth to the baby, she'd look at him and basically remember the rape trauma every interaction, and blah blah blah. And then she asked me, "Do you think it was immoral for me to kill my rape baby?" And I basically said it was immoral. And people are really sensitive about abortion, even outside of the United States, which is just insane. Like, all I'm saying is that killing babies I find killing babies morally reprehensible, and those people, they stopped being friends with me for obvious reasons, but they acted as if I said that the rape was justified, which was just retarded. Which goes to show one thing: never talk to women about politics, even if you get pressured to.
Well, you were basically calling her a murderer, right? And she probably doesn't think of herself as a murderer. So it's not that shocking to be upset.
I did. She said verbatim, "Okay, I have an abortion. I've had an abortion when I was 15 and raped. Do you think I'm a bad person?" And I said, these were my words. I said, "I don't think you're a bad person, but I think your actions were immoral." That's it. I think she's probably.
What the fuck? Didn't you say this happened a couple months ago?
Yeah, it was.
And she's dead.
I mean, she was a massive drug addict, and she went to clubs every single day. And when I this was like 4 a.m. and my other friend invited me to their place, and it was student accommodation, student stuff. They were local people. They seemed nice, and that's about it. After I told them that I hate Black Lives Matter, and the girl ended up storming out of the room. And weirdly enough, I'm gonna cut this out of the recording of the live stream because it's way too personal. She grabbed a bag of coke and just snorted it in front of me, just to get rid of my just to take her mind out of my anti Black Lives Matter comments. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure she's dead now.
Okay. That
Fast.
reminds me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying that's a fast life history strategy.
Pretty much. The other person in that room was a tranny, and I think he's dead as well.
Just everyone you know is dropping dead.
Just listen,
Just like
when
Bloom.
when I'm on vacation, I go to a lot of student towns, and I end up meeting a lot of quote unquote. I meet a lot of college students, and like 90% of them are mentally ill. At least the ones in Europe. The ones in India are fine, but the ones in Europe just they have like I've even started a trend every time I talk to, especially women. Whenever I talk to a woman in Europe who's a student and who drinks, the first thing I ask is, "How's your relationship with your dad?" And 90% of the time, they're like dead, or I don't talk to him, or ran away. So yeah, and my my experience with all of this has personally vindicated the whole dysgenics trend in Europe. So yeah, that's a little enjoyable anecdote for you guys.
That reminds me, very briefly, but I think this is quite amusing, of an occasion in which, when I was in college and I was quite drunk, and I was talking to this female who was also very drunk, and we ended up talking about eugenics for like 2 hours or something. And then she wrote down the word eugenics on a note card because she was like, "I got to remember this because I'm not going to remember this tomorrow," because we were very drunk. And she came to me the next day and she was like, "I wrote down eugenics on this card. Do you know what this was about?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. We got really drunk and you just kept going on and on about eugenics and stuff. I don't know where it was coming from." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, please don't tell anyone. I swear I'm not a racist. I don't know why I said that stuff." And I was like, "Don't worry, I won't mention
I'm a
it."
racist.
No, I left it there with her thinking an alternative.
So basically, I spent a month in Europe in I think in about May or June. I kind of forgot how long it was, but it was basically India to Europe and then Europe to India. A little summer vacation, and in one of them there was a Polish girl who was really drunk, and I don't really get drunk, but sometimes I get a little tipsy and become a massive edgelord. And we were just walking. It was me, her, and another guy who was a history buff. And I decided, hey, this is my Iron Cross necklace, and I started singing Erica, and they just joined.
What?
Uh, Basically, we were going to an after party together. We were going to an after party together, and I sang Erica, the German army song, with an iron cross, and I was displaying my iron cross necklace, which my friend got for me, and they kind of joined in on that. They were that drunk.
Okay.
All right. I actually have some really good stories from like PED user Discord servers. Because a lot of these guys are insanely based just because when you inject ridiculous amounts of testosterone, you become an individual with like paranoia, low trust in government, all these other things. But there are a lot of people in like the basically steroid community that are actually like huge race realists and stuff, and like because they obviously they've been told you're doing these things that are going to kill you one day, and like they don't believe that at face value, so they aren't going to trust other things like academics say either. They introduced me to this compound called MT2, which is a synthetic analog of the melanocortin hormone, which is something that Rushton wrote a paper about that was rich.
Oh yeah, was that the aggression one?
Yeah, and it does some of the things that Rushton was talking about. It definitely does. I can assure you that. I bought some and I injected some of it. It definitely influences some of the behaviors Rushton was talking about.
When I was doing I kind of radicalized a bunch of my Indian friends into reading Rushton. So much so that if there was someone with a lot of dark skin and they got angry, they would all look at me and say, I think the melanin has taken over his aggression levels." Just because of that one Russian paper. Because when I was first getting into race realism, I kind of treated that like a meme, and I kept telling people, just so you know, if you see someone with darker skin getting angry, it's because melanin causes aggression. This was back back in like 2017, 2018, when I was just getting
That's
into
not what it causes. It has.
I know. Looking back,
influence on like sexual functioning and stuff like that. But like,
wait, it causes what now?
It impacts like sexuality and stuff. Like if you take this, it's a synthetic analog of melanocyte stimulating hormone, which basically causes the body to produce melanin. If you inject this thing or you take it intranasally, it's like you're taking steroids. Like the degree to which your sex drive increases, it's like ridiculous. It's like you can literally like experience being like a black person for a day if you inject this. But like if you do it too much, like if you do it for like a week straight, then your skin will get dark.
Does it increase your IQ as well?
No, it doesn't impact your IQ.
That should be the new diversity meeting at workplaces. Is be a black person for a day.
At least you get the Edward pass.
Huh? Do you get the pass? I don't know. I mean, no. Well, I might look if you guys DM me. Like, I can get you hooked up if you guys ever want to like try this and like actually live the experience. Like,
I'm way too far away, sadly. Do they ship to India?
It was an unbelievable experience, and I never want to experience it again. I did this when I was in college in my last semester because I was only taking 3 classes. And I was in one of my classes. I was there, and it was like, dude, I had to leave the room. It was, it was like not. I was like, I would say this. I was like 45 minutes from like purchasing Tinder or something. Like, just the way like black men are. It is like I understand women go to the grocery store and I cut out. Basically, it's I feel live in areas with like a lot of and like they definitely are catcalled by them like every 45 seconds when they're out in public. Like nothing ever made me more of a feminist than that.
That is very interesting, honestly. I actually want to give it a try.
Oh, that probably fits really well into the RK stuff, doesn't it?
Yes. It's actually like literally something like Rushton hypothesized like 30 years ago. And then they retracted it. They said it's racist. And then, what's his name? Metacontrarian was skeptical of it when I read about this chemical. And I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, I'm looking at it. This seems legit. He was skeptical. So I fucking bought it. I'm like, you know what? We're going to find out myself. So it could have been placebo, except the effect size
Except
too large.
Smart people probably don't have as large placebo effects. So
that's also true. Except just this was not like a little placebo thing. Like because I've taken other stuff. I've used plenty of things that like would modify sex drive and stuff like that. This definitely had a very large effect. Though I mean, the amount that I took may have exceeded like the amount of like racial differences, but like either way, it's like this is a chemical that like there are group differences in, and it impacts behavior.
Imagine
Meta
if there was
contrarian and destroy.
Meta
Imagine if there was
Contrarian's
a
also a little bitch about gear. He's
uh,
like, dude, you're gonna get cancer. You're gonna have organ damage. Blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, but like I'm ripped, so fuck off.
It is amusing given the physiological damage he has done to himself already.
wait, seriously?
He's literally like vegan or something.
Is he? I did not
Yeah,
know that.
I asked him if like it made him gay, and he said yes.
I mean, I can tell if someone's gay or not just by looking at their physiognomy, and I think him and AJ kind of fell past my radar.
I knew AJ was gay.
It took a while for
Like,
me to.
I followed him with my personal account like 2 years ago, and this was when I had like a shirtless mirror selfie. It was my profile picture. And he invited me on the live stream just out of the blue. I'm like, oh, okay. And he like wanted to talk to me and shit like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, this guy is gay.
Weren't you an immigration guy before that?
Wasn't what?
Weren't you an
I
immigration
think he's
guy
talking about
before
a
that?
personal profile, not a.
That was my
Like,
personal
2 years ago
profile.
when you talked to AJ. Like, weren't you more of an immigration?
Those days,
back then?
yeah. And now I really stopped caring about that because that is really far away from anything related to like occupational or even serious intellectual interests. Because like I don't know like enough about economics to like do serious investigation of like immigration stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good assumption, right? If you meet someone who's really active in the right-wing community, in like the online right-wing community, there's a reasonable chance they're gay. It's just the priors are high.
Yeah, it's tragic.
I could go over the relatedness to equilibrium paper now.
Actually, now's a really good time.
The grammar of even talking about it is sort of a mouthful. So I'll have to talk sort of slowly, but basically, or first let's like go over what the method even is. So from your father, for each gene, there are 2 possible alleles you can inherit from him, and which one you get is random. And so basically, so let's say your father has alleles A and B, and your mother has alleles A and B. Like the expected genotype for the child will be AB, but it's possible to have AA or BB. And so for each individual, you can get their expected genotype from the parent, and then you can get the random component of their genotype, and the random component should be environmentally unconfounded. And so heritability, as they calculate it, is the slope of the relationship between similarity in the random component and phenotypic correlation. The problem with it is, though, that basically, so this establishes that at least some sort of direct genetic effect exists. But the thing is, if direct genetic effects exist, that should mean that the similarity between parent and child should, to some degree, be due to direct genetic effects. But it is like basically even doing this controls for parent-child genetic resemblance, and so you basically have to project it upwards to some degree. You can like assume that the parental similarity has some degree of genetic effect from the results for the random component, and and they don't do that. I looked through the supplementary materials for a while to see if they had any mention of it, and they didn't. And I asked the author if he had any sort of correction for that, and he said no, and said that it was unnecessary. I'm like, no, it really is. And I'm have some simulations in the works saying that no, that is necessary.
Wouldn't that also? It seems like there'd be an issue there of restriction of range with respect to the genetic diversity.
Yeah. It's not the slope of the relationship between similarity in the random component of the genotype you care about and phenotypic correlation. It's the slope of the relationship between kinship coefficient and phenotypic correlation, which the random component is not adequate for completely describing the kinship coefficient between two people. So you have to project it upwards a little bit, which they don't do. Since the sort of mating is a thing, the magnitude to which you'd project each heritability figure upwards should be a bit less than multiplying it by 2. Or somewhat quite significant. I'm not sure quite how much yet, but it should be something. And then, of course, it's educational attainment rather than IQ or whatever. But it depresses the heritability of every single trait. So you could just say okay, it agrees with the twin studies on educational attainment, and so therefore the heritability of G is greater to the degree that the twin studies say it is. But just having results like this agree with us, and us being able to say why, it's a good method, so it should be a good thing to have on your side, rather than having it used against you by people who just take the paper for granted. Although I'm not sure I'm going to get back to that project, though, because I have a bit of other stuff to do on the list.
What is on the top of that list?
Let's see. I want to go over changes over time in the correlation between IQ and income. So, if it's rising, then you should expect racial differences to rise given the IQ gap. I have the thing I'm currently doing is I have a couple of studies where I'm replicating some findings to do with the G-loading of IQ subtests being stable across test batteries, which basically shows that the test content doesn't impact the G-loading of a test. Also, going through some old papers and showing that the degree to which the G-loading is stable is positively correlated with the G-loading. So, the standard deviation of a subtest's G loadings across batteries is correlated with their mean G loading for all of them. Want to add the stuff on measurement or on test bias back into my thing. I want to add the explanation about why twin-based heritability coefficients are supposed to be interpreted as R squared rather than just a correlation. The answer has to do with path analysis. I
remember
now...
that used to be
Say again?
I remember that used to I guess I don't remember because I wasn't alive, but I know that used to be a problem in the sense that psychologists, when they first started doing behavioral genetic studies, would interpret it as an R as opposed to an R squared, and Jensen had to write like a whole paper just attacking the fellow psychologists and explaining why they can't do that.
But yeah, it's supposed to be. There's a good reason for it to be R squared, and the reason has to do with path analysis. I've been sort of passively collecting random stuff for a while. Basically, like giving examples of public opinion being malleable, which if you like sort of. It's sort of big because if you like sort of get somebody to digest that, then it's like, what's the point of taking opinions based off of what appeals to other people? So, like, if that doesn't matter, then then suddenly everything's back on the table. Like you can like be a Holocaust denier if that makes sense to you or whatever. Not that you'd be it in public, but you'd be more like open to it in private, I guess. I want to go over the history of the usage of race, so like classification stuff and the Irish thing being a meme, because that's like actually the main argument that people tend to use. And also there's like some CRT stuff that I know about, which I can like sort of show where that came from.
So with respect to the consistency of G loadings across different tests, so you found evidence that it is, because my intuition would be that it is not very consistent. You found
basically, if the test
battery
battery had is like diverse enough in test content, then it's like it's like a correlation of like 0.85 across batteries for subtest G loadings. So yeah, like if it's like a really limited amount of like test content, then it'll be lower because it's like it'll be like math ability that the G gets colored by. But if you have like a sufficiently diverse set of things, then you know that G like actually exists because like if you have like a psychomotor ability test or something that's not measured by any of the G on the other battery, its G loading will still be the same because it's G that gives it its G loading, not whatever other abilities are in the battery.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I got the impression that wasn't true from Carroll's work from the early 90s, reviewing the vector work that had been done up to that time. But maybe I'm misremembering that, or maybe we just probably have a lot more factor analytic evidence now with sufficiently diverse tests than we did in 1993.
I don't think that was really a thing he did in that, to my memory.
Well, he looked at the G loadings. I mean, he analyzed the distribution that he, divided it by subtests and talked about the median and the range of the G loadings across all the studies that he compiled and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't remember if he.
I don't think he went over stuff that had like a bunch of like a sample of individuals all take two different batteries or two or more batteries, because I think that's kind of what's necessary to even measure that.
Oh, correct. Yeah, no, that is not what he was doing. That is true. Okay, so you're looking at like the research that showed that the G scores, for instance, for individuals are basically the same. If you have that same individual take a bunch of it's that kind
Yeah,
of.
I've been doing that too. But also just the G loadings of the tests themselves are stable across batteries to a substantial degree.
Yeah, but it's that same kind of design.
Yeah.
Now I understand.
Oh, and I also got like a method of generating G scores where the correlation between G scores and subtests is like exactly equal to the mathematically derived G loadings of those tests, which is pretty useful for these sorts of methods because you can just split a sample between subtests to get like the two batteries, generate G scores for the two batteries, and then correlate the G scores across batteries to get how much those G's should correlate. You literally like have two vectors that you correlate, and you don't have to do other math. You just do that. One of those guys from Imperium Press is apparently going over semi-academically stuff about pagan culture finding its way into Christianity, which is like kind of interesting if you think that group differences in personality are a thing. Something on like the education stuff. I have like a list of pop sci memes that are like that like people won't be offended if you deny, but which like the average person thinks or at least has heard of in school, and which are just like dumb and wrong. And so it's like that's like sort of a way to make it practical, the wrongness of academia. It's like, oh, look at all these memes it's generated which are wrong. And I have like polling data for some of them.
With academia, it's also that people can predict what replicates while things that are not replicating get cited more. So it's like these people, they know that they're full of shit and they just still say these things anyways.
Yeah. Well, you have to show that it's the people themselves who actually write them who predict slow replication, which it's just that academics in general can predict what replicates, and the people who come up with this might just be especially dumb.
Yeah, that's true. That's possible.
At some point I want to go into whether or not effective. Or go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I recall correctly, if you could kind of an index of replicability of a study, the result is that the less replicatable the study is, the less likely to replicate, rather, the study is, the more citations it gets, which suggests that it's not really one lone idiot. There's a community.
Oh yeah, I saved that paper in my notes somewhere.
Support those results that they should know is not either that they're not going to replicate.
Let's see. Oh, on like the test validity or on like the construct validity of G, we have the stuff on test effort, and I did a thing on test anxiety recently. A third thing I want to do about that is whether or not the negative effect of sleep on performance is on G or not.
That would be very interesting. I've thought before that is probably likely genetically caused, but mediating environmental variable in some sense or behavioral variable that might explain part of the race IQ gap because blacks report sleeping less than whites do.
Could even be that whites like to stay up later because they don't get bothered, and so it could even be that people who stay up later are smarter or something.
Well, I think that when it comes to sleep patterns, for example, women sleep about half an hour longer than men on average, and I think that this is for biological reasons. And it very well may be that group differences in sleep patterns is also one of these biological differences.
Yeah, that is definitely possible.
It might be possible another thing on the list. It's probably possible to get a bit extra predictive power out of the current GWAS data if you just model things a bit better, because obviously in protein coding regions it's codons that matter and not SNPs, and some SNPs some SNP differences won't make a difference as to what codon is, or what amino acid a codon codes for, while some SNPs do. And so you just want to do variants attributable to amino acid sequence and not SNP sequence, and you'd probably get a bit of extra validity out of just that. And then there's other stuff to think about with that.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I've never thought about it before, but now that you say it, I immediately wonder, well, why aren't we already doing that? It seems like the obvious thing to do.
It's just the GWAS people. They're just given a data set, and they're just interpreting it the Grug way, when how genes work is more complex than that. And if you just have a basic cursory knowledge, you could probably get a lot more out of it. The codon thing is only one aspect of that.
Yeah. There's been some interesting research down, I think, this year, trying to propose attention as the cognitive manifestation of G, so to speak. Have any thoughts on that?
I mean, that'd be sort of similar to the motivation and test anxiety stuff.
I don't know. Just in general, when you think about it, women seek attention and they're not seeking out brainiacs. We have a lot of evidence of dysgenics despite women seeking attention.
I don't think that's where he was going with it, but
okay.
No, I didn't mean seeking attention. I meant the cognitive ability to have sustained attention. That's people. G is what G really is. Some people have said reaction time or working memory, and there's been some, I think, seemingly impressive research out this year saying the sustained attention is the best candidate.
That sounds
reasonable. I kind of agree with Jensen on just mental speed. I think it's just the ability to control F through your brain faster than other people.
Yeah, same here. I agree with that.
Well, so far as I know, the if you take a factor from a bunch of reaction test kind of things and correlate with the G, I mean, there is a correlation, but it's nowhere near unity.
I mean, I don't think that's the only operationalization that's really important.
I guess the empirical, the thing that impressed me about the attention paper was that they took a factor out of attention. And this is also very interesting because, the IQ tests typically don't have a simple measure of just sustained attention. But they took a weighting factor from a bunch of attention tests, and it correlated at 0.9 something, but it was basically unity with the G.
I mean, you can do that with a lot of things, though. You can do that with learning performances in various ways, and do that. You can G loading stuff test content isn't very dependent on.
You can if you get a diverse set of abilities, right?
Oh, but that was just one ability. You mean?
Yeah, exactly. For instance, well, like I was saying, the things that I was comparing it to my mind was there's been very similar things where you take a latent factor behind different tests of reaction time and also a latent factor behind different tests of working memory, and those both were shown to correlate with G, but at much lower levels, basically.
Well, okay, so on attention, it could just be sort of like learning where it's like quote unquote attention, but it's like attention for these different abilities. So attention on ability 1 versus attention on ability 2. And like it's sort of like learning where it's like, okay, learning on ability 1, learning on ability 2, learning on ability 3, factor analyze that. It's not because learning is a single thing, it's because it has to do with ability on a bunch of different stuff.
Where's that background noise coming from?
I think Bloom is eating something.
Blue might want to mute that. I'll mute it for him.
It's not very annoying.
We've covered a lot of the systemic racism stuff. The only thing that's left is the voter ID thing, which at this point doesn't require any intellectual rigor.
I'm not really sure that voter ID is that important to cover. Like it's just sort of cursory to the systemic racism stuff. Like really it's just like the oppression stuff that matters and not the specific thing.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of data you can use. But I don't know if you guys have seen. So around 2 years ago, I made a voter ID doc. I don't know if you guys have seen it. The summary of it is that the effect sizes are negligible between voter turnout and strict voter ID laws. So that's it. Oh, and minority.
And also, whatever effect size does exist could just be IQ.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to bring a can of corn, the requirement to vote, black people would follow through with doing that at a lower rate than white people. They follow instructions worse in literally every single other aspect of society. Why would we expect them to follow directions at the same rate for this?
You could just have a direction which says pick up a pile of dirt on your way to the voting booth, and then that would discriminate against blacks a little bit.
There was an old Kanye rap which had the lyric, the average black can't read the average black can't balance a checkbook or something like that.
Ain't that the truth?
So I actually do like Kanye. His music's pretty good. Sean, have you ever listened to Kanye? I think the AF guys have gotten me into it. Sean, you do it.
No, sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted. Or muted, rather. Yeah, I've heard the music of Kanye. I don't think there are many people who haven't that are like American and under the age of 45.
Do you like it?
Oh, I don't know any Kanye songs.
You've heard it, you just can't name the songs. There's no way you can live in society and not be exposed to it.
I've probably heard less than 30 minutes of rap music in my entire life.
Yeah, and I would assume 5 of those minutes would be Kanye.
Okay, realistically, it might even be less than 10, dude.
Have you ever played Saints 3?
In any case, he made some okay music a long time ago, and in recent years, all of his music has been trash. That is my opinion.
I understand.
I was amused by the whole Skeet Davidson thing, though.
Oh, I remember that.
Skeetus fetus.
I think I
fucked up what he did.
I think Kanye stopped being as good after Ye release. Ye had some good tracks, but everything else was just Like
I
two or
don't.
three of the songs were good, but all the others were meh.
I don't even know what
I'll,
songs are
I'll
on
give
Yay.
it. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that Jesus is King kind of got a lot of groypers in. The only reason a lot of people on the right actually know about Jesus is King is because of the groyper war, because Nick used it religiously back then. So I like it because of the nostalgia it brings me, since I got viral during the groyper wars. And then everything else was pretty okay. Like his stuff was really good back in like 2009 and even 2016. But after that, just it's not the same.
Anyone else see any new interesting stuff recently?
Just Rose Maddow.
I'll check Twitter to see if there's anything interesting popping up.
Well, I mean, just like anything you've been looking into specifically.
No, I have been focused on my personal life, like
Same
work
here.
and stuff like that.
There is one interesting thing: the Hunter Biden iPhone leaks. I actually looked at that Telegram channel before it got deleted. I expected to see some high level dirt, but instead I just saw footage of him banging hookers. I wish I could forget that, but unfortunately my memory's too good.
I saw yesterday, and I tweeted about this, but there was a new sort of paper in the literature showing the anti-white bias of liberals. That's always a nice thing to have. And in this case,
I didn't see. I saw your feed, but I didn't see that.
Well, now you know. But in this case, it had to do with hypothetical hiring discrimination. So that's neat to add a new kind of discrimination. The results were just perfect. It was just literally they asked them to rate how unfair discrimination on the basis of someone's race was in a hiring context. And liberals and moderates said that it was unfair only when the person being discriminated against was black, and didn't rate it as unfair at all when the person was white.
What was it like? The same individuals said so in the two contexts, or was it like revealing? Oh, so it wasn't even like a revealing implicit bias thing where you asked different people the same question but changed the race, and then
the paper was talking about how to maximize the statistical power of the paper. They had each individual do all the things. It still came out that the paper was bigoted as fuck.
Then if you do like the sneaky route, then it would probably be even larger because you get like the rare or the certain people actually do try to hide it or be consistent when it's primed in them.
Mm-hmm. Being said, I do think that there's a large number of conservatives who low-key are like, oh, well, actually, because of affirmative action, it makes sense to discriminate a little bit, and then they just won't say it in the paper. Like, if you ask them twice, they're probably not going to admit that. And it's like, I feel that way, I think, because that's objectively correct. Like, Charles Murray wrote a whole book about this. It's like, it's a 10-point IQ gap when you look at black versus white people with the same job on average.
Is it just me, or have people suddenly decided to start like DMing and doing voice calls a lot more frequently recently when they were inactive beforehand?
I think it was more last year than this year, but then again, I've been offline for a while.
I just mean like in the past day or two, it seems like people are doing more stuff than they have been for a while.
This is the only voice call I've been in.
Same here. Mm. Oh, something funny. Something funny. A guy in my group chat said, Hunter Ravelow makes rap music, knocked up his baby mama twice, and has a low IQ. Hunter Ravelow is trying to be a black man.
All he needs is the melon accordion.
I can hook him up with that. I can hook him up with that if he wants to be transracial.
Maybe it would make him less gay. Maybe that'd help.
Probably.
Well, it would make him because it would make him like want to have sex more. I don't want to have more kids. He's retarded. Like,
I feel sorry for his kids.
And he's one of those people who's like, I'm personally pro-life. It's like, No, Hunter, what you need to
I
do
don't
is
even
tell
think
your wife to
I
abort
don't
all
even
of
think
them.
he's personally pro-life anymore.
Maybe not, but
Imagine saying that in any other context, like, well, I'm personally against murdering Amerindians, but I don't think there should be a law against murdering Amerindians.
The rebuttal to that would be achoo!
I mean, it's literally that, like, basically Christians are so cocked. And my mom was this way too. She was like, I believe in the sanctity of life, but I respect other people's decisions. I'm like, okay, so would you respect me if I thought that, like, human life began 6 months after birth? And it was just okay to kill the babies for 6 months after birth? It's like, obviously, no, that's retarded.
Yeah, you know whose opinion they don't respect in their worldview? God's opinion, apparently, because his opinion is that shit's an abomination. And you
Right.
think that would be the end of the discussion, but
These people
nope.
talk about. These people are always on about Muscada Daddy with theists, but they believe in crystals and whatnot.
I mean, my thing is, like, I recently started reading some books about religion, and I think it's so true. It's that, like, when you have, like, basically people that aren't religious fundamentalists, it's like, you don't even fucking believe in this shit. It's like, there's no part of the Bible that says once you get your 3 branches of government, then you want to detach your moral religious faith from the opinions that you have that inform your voting behaviors and what you want in society. There's no, it doesn't say any of that. The idea that, like, I don't know, you should just discard your religious beliefs when you actually start voting, that's not what the Bible says. And the majority of religious people literally do that.
Yeah, I would say most religious people, it's like they have a pseudo belief in their religion. And if you think about this psychologically, it's like when you incorporate a belief, you can think of levels of believing it, and the deepest level of belief is when the belief has been internalized so that all your other beliefs have been made, and this happens, subconsciously mostly, but been made to be consistent with the thing you're now believing. And the only people that do that with religion are recognized as totally crazy fanatical people. And for most people, it's just this belief that they kind of remind themselves of so that they don't have to feel as bad when they think about the possibility of dying someday. And also maybe they
And,
attend the church. That's basically what it is to the vast majority of people.
right. And I would say Sam Harris in his books, he described that sort of thing, this sort of, when you haven't fully internalized it, or, like, you don't, say, read the Bible word for word and, like, have this strong conviction to it. He refers to that more as hope than actual faith, or, like, believing in it. Like, it's more so hoping that this is the case for the afterlife. But it's like, I mean, if you can't, like, if you honestly, like, believe in, like, separation of church and state, and, like, you say you're religious, I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, or, like, say religious tolerance. It's like, why on earth would you tolerate, like, your neighbors, like, making these really bad choices that are gonna potentially give them eternal suffering, basically? Like, I don't understand, like, how you can be religious and seriously be tolerant of other views.
And in some cases, the implication would be very weird. Like, for instance, if you said, oh, well, the gay thing, I don't want to force my views on other people through the government. So the government can legalize gays, but it's okay. The view the Bible mandates is not just that homosexuality is wrong, it's for you to stone homosexuals. So presumably then, if you're not having the government do that, what that would mean is, no, it's fine, the government doesn't have to, me and my friends will get the stones. But of course, that is not what they mean.
Free market.
I mean, I refuse to adopt the belief mandated by the Bible is what they mean.
Right. But I mean, to a degree, though, it's like, I strongly prefer people that are religious fundamentalists to the kind of, like what Joe Biden is, like, some pussy ass, like, politically convenient label, basically. Because when religion comes up, it gets to the point where it's like, at least the fundamentalists will, like, agree to, like, the terms of debate, like, either
I'm right or you're right. Like, we can't be like somewhere in the middle. Whereas like with Joe Biden, it's like he's accepted all of the premises of like secular society, and all the premises of secular society are in direct conflict with religion being an accurate, like, essentially representation of the world.
Yeah, I think it tells you that someone's not an intellectually serious person. You know, they just, if someone has that kind of half belief or hope in their religion, it suggests that they just don't take their own worldview that seriously. And so you probably shouldn't either.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I just remembered something else I could look into.
There's called Jewish for those takes.
There's a meta-analysis recently about the strength of assorted mating across a bunch of different traits. And now that exists, you can run a correlation with their heritability coefficients to try to replicate that one, to replicate the
Was it Rushton?
genetic similarity theory. Yeah, that stuff that Rushton did.
Yeah.
Which, like, sure, IQ and like educational attainment will be higher because community effects, but it might not be like entirely just that, because there's some there's some stuff about
use him as well, just because this guy, I don't know if he's debated Hunter Avalon or if he's planning to, but I'll get him on the VC just to see what he has to say. Yo, Seth, you're on the air.
Seth,
hello.
What's up, my guy? Seth, how you doing?
Yo, Bloom, what's going on, man?
Not
Seth?
much. How you been?
I'm
Who's
doing
this
all
guy?
right, dog. I'm doing all right.
That's good to hear.
Hell yeah. So, yeah, what have y'all been up to?
I just had a live stream. We were talking about race realism and Hunter Avalon and all that. And since you plan on debating
Yeah, I get to debate Hunter Avalon tomorrow. I'm just gonna call out like a lot of the wrong shit that he said and kind of try to
you
like
might as well
debate him on.
listen.
Ask him
There's
if
a
he's
chance
ever
we might
smelled a trans person's vagina.
Never done. Come on. Panties don't have coochies.
He'll probably say yes.
I would not be surprised. He sounds like one of those passive aggressive women types.
I think he'd be like, "Yes, I have. It's lovely."
The same amount of energy when someone calls his wife ugly.
His wife's a whore.
We know that.
Didn't his
For real.
wife get like knocked up by a couple of black guys when they had like a divorce or something for like a short period of time?
Not sure. But one of the
Wait,
guys
she got knocked off by them? As in she
Knocked
has
up
black
to be-
children?
I mean, maybe she just fucked them and didn't have kids. Maybe she aborted them or something. I don't know. But like,
This is critical information. If Hunter Avalon is raising a black kid that is not his,
no,
that is
no,
one
no,
of the
he's not. He's not.
No.
He's not raising one.
I don't know.
Definitely not
I don't know
raising
if that. I don't know if that stuff is true. What I do know is the stuff I've been involved in. Like there was a guy in AF called Jesse Ryan, and he basically told Carissa Avalon, Hunter's wife, that he would PayPal her $1,000 if she sent him a video saying "Daddy." She did. She didn't get paid. Jesse just made it up. Did not give her the money, and then the woman tried to take down his account.
I don't know. I'm sure that like when they broke up, I'm sure that she was fucking other dudes.
I mean, he tried to fuck a TPUSA girl by rapping.
Dude, all that I'll say is that like, look, Hunter, like, you can call me a Nazi or an incel as many times as you want, except I'm sure that like if I slid into your wife's DMs with my personal account, like I could totally like get your wife to send me like pics of her tits, like in like 45 minutes or less. Like,
Me too.
that
man.
dude.
Me too.
That dude is one of the most feminine, just stupid, retarded people that I've ever met.
I'm gonna agree with what Nick said. He looks like a melted ice cream cone.
He looks in a way that like naturally inspires the desire to bully him. That seems to
Oh
be.
yeah, he looks and behaves like that.
I would love if we could get Jesse Peterson on the line when Seth
Oh,
is debating him,
beta,
just to be like, "You're a beta male."
beta, amazing, beta, and
Are
then
you a
just like,
male?
just
Are
like,
you a homosexual?
are you a homosexual? I mean,
I
Hunter
can't
has
tell if he's trolling or if he has a learning disability.
both.
He's
Hey,
described
is it
himself
true
as a
about
low
Jesse Lee
IQ
Peterson?
individual.
Is it true that he like groomed people?
There was a
I
documentary about it,
don't
but I'm
think
not
he
sure.
did. I'm skeptically groom people because I think he's too retarded to actually groom somebody.
I mean, pedophiles do tend to be lower IQ than normal people.
Right, but that's like Vosh, not like 70 IQ. It's just retarded specimen.
Oh, by the way, Seth, if you debate Hunter, you have to record it because there are some people he's debated that Hunter just kicks out of his server and never records and never releases to the public. So
I'll try to record it. I mean, I'm gonna do it. He's gonna do it on like a live stream, so I'll like send the link when I join like his call.
Okay.
just have good screen recording software.
Ask him if he's ever had sex with a black woman, and if he says no, call him racist.
I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna because like dude, during his debate with like Nick, like he was so incredibly bad faith. Like it was incredible, like how bad faith he was. He just insulted Nick. And he's so corny too. Like he's so cringy. He's not funny. It was just bad. It was very
you're a
embarrassing.
science denier.
Not even that. It's like, oh, you're so triggered, and literally, like 5 minutes later, he starts screaming at Nick, saying, "I might have taken an optical L, but it was worth it to roast one of the biggest pieces of shit ever." He sounds like a bigger faggot than the faggots I've come across.
Dude, he had one of the biggest self owns, bro. Like Nick said something about his wife, and Hunter was like, "Well, you're already not allowed like 100 feet from a school." And so I was like, "Oh, so your wife is like in preschool or some shit?" It's just like dumb.
He also talked about Nick and John Doyle having orgies. Like this guy, all this guy can think about is sex, which is why he coomed inside of his baby mama and then ran away.
Yeah, I'm
He's
he,
black. He's a spiritual black.
What'd you say, Sean?
I saw he was calling Nick. He was calling him like small dick Nick. And it's just like, dude, you cannot give off. You cannot be like the physical manifestation of bitch energy and still make those kinds of insults. Like, it just does not work for you.
That's the thing.
The funny thing is when the screenshots of the girl Hunter was dating got leaked, she said herself that he has small balls. So this is like high levels of projection. Like you can call.
Damn, that tells you who wears the pants in that relationship.
He uses this.
I mean, if he has the audacity to disclose that kind of thing, that heavily implies her husband is a tiny ass dick. It tells you who's wearing the pants in that one.
Okay, how long till he becomes trans?
To be honest, I think that like doing the whole tranny process, as insane and neurotic as it is, I mean, it does take some balls to like cut off your balls. Like it does. Like that's a huge risk.
He's also probably too poor to afford the hormone blockers and the estrogen or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he would show up to it. The doctor would like start naming side effects of that shit, and he would be like, "What? None of the studies that I read online said this."
He doesn't. You know,
calling his doctor a Nazi.
He just look at he just say, well, none of the you, even though you're a doctor, the consensus disagrees with you. Like as I said in the beginning of the stream, if
He'd
you
like
go to
ask his
dinner,
doctor for peer-reviewed studies saying
listen,
off your
if you go
balls
to
that
dinner
there's
with any
like
of these guys,
hormonal
they'll
implications.
find if you go to dinner with these guys by any weird coincidence, they're gonna do whatever it takes to bring up the trans stuff. That's how obsessed they are with it, and I'll never understand why. Like, yeah, there are chicks with dicks. That's it. Why are you so obsessed with them? To read about their every actions, to read about studies that, well, badly read studies and all that. Like, these guys are like absolutely obsessed with trannies.
It's disgusting, really. It's actually really fucking weird.
Yeah.
It
The
is.
way that like I try explaining the tranny stuff to a lot of these people, like when it comes to just real world issues, for example, like with the sports stuff. Before I had ever lifted, like the first time I ever went to lift weights in my life, I was able to break like the female bench press record for my weight and age. So
What's the
now that
female bench press record? What even is that?
I don't know, but like since I at the time I was like 160, but right now I'm 180, and for 181 and under, it's like 205. Like the first time I ever went to lift, I could do 205 for 3 reps. So, like, I mean, you take somebody who's trained throughout puberty, say for 6 years, and they just cut off their balls. It's like, dude, that doesn't work. That's like that's literally like being on a really strong steroid cycle for 6 years non-stop. That would kill you if you did a 6 year long steroid cycle. But for puberty, that's just what it is.
You know how there are some people who have like alien hand syndrome where they feel like their left hand is like a foreign thing that shouldn't be there, and then they want to cut it off, and then if they do that, sometimes they develop ghost hand syndrome where they feel like it's still there and it like itches and they can't itch it because it's not physically there. Apparently, some trans people get that fucking ghost stick syndrome.
Didn't Dutton write a paper on trannies before? And I haven't actually read that paper, but I've read the response to it, and like 90% of it is that Dutton's paper is bad because it might put the lives of marginalized groups in danger. I can't believe this passes off as academic rigor.
Dude,
Um,
was that
the
Golda
proper response
Goldberg's
is yes,
criticism,
chat.
or was that a real one?
What? No, that's not a Goldberg criticism. It's on ResearchGate.
Oh,
I just
damn.
Dutton trans, and then look at the response. There's only one
I
response so far.
wanted to make a LinkedIn account as Golda Goldberg and like start applying for some university jobs and seeing if I could get any phone screenings.
Oh, for those of you who don't know, he had an Instagram account called Dr. Golda Goldberg, where he first pretended to be a Jewish guy called Dr. Ethan Cohen, and then he said he put that hypothetical Jew through a transition, and then she called herself Dr. Golda Goldberg.
Yeah,
with the sports thing, actually, with the sports thing, I don't get the extreme fixation on ability that the trans activists have sort of moved the conversation to. Because it's not as if, like, suppose it is true that there are women weightlifters who can lift far more weight than Hunter Avallone. Not an implausible proposition. But even though it's true, right, that doesn't mean that Hunter Avallone can then go compete against them because the competition isn't for weak people. It's for women.
Right.
And it's true women are
like,
weaker, but that's not the defining characteristic.
A
Right.
strength competition among the weakest people on the planet. It's like you're not allowed to compete in the strength competition unless you're like 1 percentile in strength.
Right. I mean, interestingly though, the WNBA has just been allowing trannies like the whole time, and they've just been silent about it. And like nobody gives a shit because literally nobody watches the WNBA. There's like TikTok videos and shit of people walking around cities saying like, "Would you rather have like courtside tickets to this WNBA game or a dollar?"
Or a
People
dollar.
take the dollar.
People pick the dollar.
People always
Smart
pick the dollar because I would too.
Yeah, people don't understand the utility. I mean, obviously, people don't understand the utility of female sports. Female sports, for the most part, it's an inherently retarded concept. The only utility that a normal person can get from female sports is if it's something nice to look at. And obviously, the trannies fucking ruin that. There's no argument about that.
Yeah, so I think that through a certain age, female sports are fine insofar as like they could, like, this is gonna sound boomer as fuck, but like teach life skills, like work hard and everything, and like, but like after maybe be 12 years old, female sports are kind of a meme.
Trannies, for the most part, ruin everything. They ruin dating. They ruin sports. They ruin cosplay. They ruin. I don't even know what else they ruin.
Cosplay's always been weird.
Yeah, but at least back in the day, it was somewhat normal.
No, it wasn't. There is no.
Oh boy.
Like, at least back then, it was consisted of weirdos and perverts who knew what their gender was. I mean, you could say that, but it was never normal.
I mean, normal relative to now. That's what I mean. Like, I've been in enough cons to know how crazy people are. Okay, there are some really overweight pedophiles in the cosplay community, but now it consists of overweight pedophiles with gender problems and mental illnesses. Like, the only difference between
Fucking
now
fear
and
of the
back
wolf.
then is that there were fewer mental illnesses and fewer tragedies back in the day. Like, yeah, trannies and cosplay is just choose me now. If you're a dissident in China and you have a choice between watching trannies do anything and death, I think it's pretty evident what people would pick. Like, trannies ruin everything, including YouTube debates.
It would be very weird to debate transgenderism with a trans person. I think it would be fun, but also weird.
The trans person would probably be like less dogmatic about it, if anything.
I've had some IRL experiences with trans men, and one of them, so sometimes I don't want to say what I want to say because I don't want to get into trouble. I don't want to get punched in the face by some retarded she-male or a twink pretending to be a boy. And yeah, imagine a trans person just saying, "I can't believe you're trying to invalidate my identity and my existence." And I'm like, you're the ones killing yourselves because you can't accept yourselves for who you are. So who's really invalidating their identity?
When I was in college, the professor one time took like 3 classes to talk about like transgender stuff. And there was this one Southern kid in the mic, and it was the funniest thing ever. And he didn't know that his mic was on. This was in his Zoom class in college. He's like, in a Southern accent, he's like, "This is so fucking gay." And everybody was like, and there was like 200 people in this Zoom call. And the professor's like, "Who said that?" And like, nobody knows who it was in that class. Because it's like, if you're a professor, you're not going to take the time to like revisit the recording to figure out who said it. Like, that would take too much time.
If there's one good thing about lockdowns, is that people use Microsoft Teams to troll the shit out of people.
Well, I mean, like, you know when the lecture started and you know what time it is currently, so you know, like, around when to look within the 5-minute interval.
You have to, like, download it. You have to download the recording in order to, like, rewatch it or something like that, which takes forever.
Who has the patience for that, especially if you're a teacher getting really shit pay?
Right. And this professor had, like, 3 children under the age of, like,
I
4
mean,
years old.
like shitlibs tend to care more about stuff to get people fired or whatever, so some might.
The professor that I called an ethno-Marxist, and like there were no consequences. Like she didn't give a fuck.
Nah.
I'm glad that I just narrowly escaped the trans craze in college.
Thank God.
I cannot imagine listening to a
I'm
professor.
also. I mean,
that kind
I
of-
share the same experience as you. Thank God I did my bachelor's degree in India. Thank God. Too many trannies, man.
I don't even know if I'm gonna go to college.
Honestly,
Depends on what you want to
idea.
study.
Get a math degree or something.
I was thinking about going to law school.
Oh, that would actually be useful. That's
The
one
law
of the
department is
areas
actually
where
surprisingly based.
yeah, law school is a good thing to do.
Law
You get
school
to
I've met some pretty based people. I've met some pretty based people in some very unusual places. Like one of my friends is without doxing her too much. I mean, one of my friends is a friend from a Discord server for a university anime society, and I found out she is a race realist and watches Survive the Giant. Another friend of mine is without really doxing him, is a black South African cousin's whose cousin's grandmother used to be part of Hitler Youth. So unusual places, man. You meet some really interesting, cool people in unusual places, and I love it.
I mean, sheesh.
Oh, I lost my train of thought.
And that guy loves Johnny Rebel, so double based.
Honestly, like college is one of the biggest wastes of time for society. Like people complain, like, oh, there's this like labor shortage. Like people aren't doing like wagey jobs. It's because you're sending these people to sociology class. They could be like waging right now, but they're in sociology 101.
Okay,
Talking
what
about how
having
poverty shrinks the brain.
lawyers on your side lets you do is A, you can like defend friends from cancellation. B, you can like comb the books and eventually like you can like Joseph Stalin style show me the man, I'll show you the crime. You can just like comb the books for a while until you find something on someone, and then you can sue enemies or get money out of them or something. The skill sort of involved might sort of help in settle internal disputes for organizations.
You want to know the bad thing about having lawyers?
Mm-hmm.
It means you have a lot of Jews.
Not if the lawyers aren't Jewish.
I'm kidding. That's a joke.
Okay. Another thing. Basically, all you need is a training, and then once you like have your credentials or whatever, you don't need any sort of external like business infrastructure to be willing to cooperate with you. You can just operate on your own. And so it's a way to sort of have independence in our economy, which is pretty valuable. It's not like the normal thing where if you try to start like a website or something, you have to play like whack-a-mole with the economy because people deplatform you or whatever.
I think there's some state, I don't remember what it is, where you can like become a lawyer without going to law school if you pass the bar.
I mean, I think you can take the bar without going to law school.
Well, in most states, and this didn't used to be true, but in most states it is illegal to sort of just study and become a lawyer without going to schooling. There's at least one state where it's illegal.
I mean, it might be like illegal to try to practice law without passing the bar exam, but it could be that you can take the bar exam without having credentials beforehand.
Are you allowed to just keep on taking the bar over and over and over again until you pass?
Probably not, but as long as you're allowed to learn the content on your own, you could probably get things done faster than schools would have you do it, because you don't have to take sociology or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to look into some of these things, how much they've been gaming some of these tests to get black people into legal practice so that they can get some people into the government. Like Stacey Abrams, for example, going to Yale Law School, just kind of looking at the 500-pound black woman phenotype, she's probably not the brightest. Because
they probably have affirmative action for admitting law school applicants, but they probably have affirmative action for admitting applicants, but it might just be like one of those things that's sort of under the radar to the extent that like people don't check the graduation rates.
That could be the case, though.
Apparently, I've noticed there are 4 states in which you do not have to go to law school in order to take the bar. They all require an apprenticeship program, basically working at a law firm for 2 years instead of law school.
Wait, say again, I missed that.
That there are 4 states where you can become a lawyer and pass the bar and all that without going to law school. But even in those 4 states, you have to become a quote apprentice and work at a law office for a number of years in order to take the exam instead of going to law school.
Well, if you if people eventually had like a base organization for that, you could probably streamline the process, and it wouldn't suck too much to be there.
Yeah, dude.
So I could go. Yeah.
So is the debate happening?
Wait, is this Nikolai that just said something in Wagner's chat, or is this
No.
like a meme?
Oh wait.
It's called Wagner.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wagner's here. Or no. Nikolai is here. That is Nikolai.
Yeah, my chat is a hellhole, honestly. That's why my involvement in there is minimal.
Yeah, I kind of want to ban him.
It's fine. He's I've already stopped him from posting pictures because there was a time when he used to post nothing but tranny porn and tranny surgeries and all that. So I had to get rid of that.
Although maybe it's good to keep him here just to be a tard guard for him. Stop
Honestly,
him from.
yeah. Keep him here so he doesn't fuck shit up. And he's way too autistic for debates. And even despite all of that, he's still beat Hacker.
So what's your debate about with Hunter Matt?
I think he left.
He left.
It's basically
He's debating
getting Hunter on a bunch of stuff that Hunter's gotten wrong over the years, especially stuff on boardroom diversity and innovation, among other things.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be incredibly stupid to think that just like putting a bunch of people together, you're gonna have a measurably better outcome if they're just from diverse backgrounds. Like of all things, like you have to be just so retarded. Oh, like say you're making like software programs. Oh, I'm from Saudi Arabia, and where I'm from, we wear towels on our heads, and that's gonna help me bring unique skills to this software company. Like that's retarded.
I will get rid of
Or let's say you're in like the process of specializing into something, and let's say that like knowledge builds on each other. And once you learn one thing, it can branch off into another, into like 3 other things. You'd predict that it's the person who learned the base first thing that would be able to branch off into other things. rather than the person who didn't even learn that. And so if like a group has a greater ability to learn the initial first thing, that group would be able to branch out more easily and become more specialized, and then that group would have more diversity of usefulness there.
Right, and then there's also just that the reality of if diversity were to actually enhance outcomes, it would probably be as a statistical artifact just from having more Asians in your firm. I'd say that's statistically like more diverse.
Or it could just be that like more powerful firms are more likely to select for diversity requirements.
Right. I mean, like if there was a causal design that actually like found a higher diversity using like longitudinal analysis, like if they were to find diversity like improves outcomes, I'd assume it'd be the case of Simpson's paradox that when you sort out, did they hire a bunch of Asians or did they hire like a bunch of black people and Mexicans? You find out that they were just hiring a bunch of Asians.
I think Nick did pretty well in that debate, honestly. Just because Hunter was very stupid.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. Just in like the political discourse, you don't even have to appear to be intelligent. Like, does Hunter seriously appear to be intelligent to his viewers? I feel like he comes off more as a normal guy.
The average person is very stupid, so possibly.
Right, but like, I feel like Vosh at least has this facade of being this intelligent guy who's educated. Like, at least he can speak. Hunter can't even talk
without spurging out.
Right. He doesn't come off as remotely competent, whereas Vosh is somebody that it's like I have listened to Vosh and at least really okay, this guy's educated, like for whatever
he's not really
for whatever it means.
For whatever it means, put it like that.
No, for whatever it means, he speaks like he's been through school. Hunter's like, oh my god, this is literally transphobic. It just sounds like
it's like that
sounds like just a 15-year-old female.
Thing. Xanderhall has the same type of cadence.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is literally transphobic bullshit. This is ridiculous.
Oh my god, you're literally banned. Oh my god, you're literally banned from my chat because you're so transphobic. I can't believe that. I can't fake the voice cracks. He has a lot of voice cracks as well. It's like I can't believe you would say that.
I mean, didn't Xanderhall tell Sean? Didn't Xanderhall tell Sean? Like something like he has a really hard time believing like surveys on like or like quizzes on p-values that were given to academics. Like, did they he said
something along the lines of if these guys are illiterate, I feel sorry for civilization because bridges would collapse and trees would fall down or something like that.
It's like social scientists don't build bridges, you fucking idiot. Like I've heard Sean make. I've heard Sean make this talking point a million times that like if engineering was as bad as social science, we would see bridges falling. It's that in social science you don't have to see these short-term catastrophes like a bridge. Like this is. It's like have you ever listened to the people that you talk to?
Do you remember the Jangles debate?
Oh, that was it. May have been Jangles that said that, and not Xanderhall.
No, Xanderhall said that. I remember.
Oh, okay. I think Jangles also said it.
Re-uploaded it.
I mean, imagine what it would mean if, because you can do this with people have done this with like social psychology textbooks, right? You go into them and you look at the classic foundational citations, about half of them don't replicate, fake news. Imagine if that was true of a textbook on structural engineering. What that would actually inform what would happen to us.
A lot of dead people, that's for sure.
I mean, a good way to put it, though, is that, like, religion and, like, cultural norms itself came from essentially the social sciences of the past. And you look at how they built things in the past, that was the engineering of the past. it took much less time for us to sort of modernize developing buildings and stuff like that than it took for us to say have a modern set of social beliefs like accepting gay marriage and stuff like that. We've sort of seen this thing play out. I'm like, it's much easier to sort of self-correct physical things than it is to self-correct sort of beliefs about society and how things work.
And of course, I mean, the fact that the falseness of an idea in something like engineering would reveal itself so evidently puts an incentive structure in place. Whereas in social science, you just have to rely on people's sort of, the better angels of the nature or whatever. But also, it's funny how like this argument, like Nazis could have said this, right? And no one would say, oh, so therefore it would have been illegitimate to deny what Nazi scientists were saying because after all, they could build bridges. What?
They could also build railroads.
And chambers. All kinds of things they could do.
Yeah, I mean, like...
Except they made the doors out of wood.
I remember, like, just in college, I heard a couple of professors say this, like, in biology classes, like, this has been peer-reviewed, it's evaluated by experts in the field, you can take it to the bank. It's like, dude, that is not how research works. And this professor, when I said, like, when I confronted this professor, like, are you sure that's like peer review? Are you sure it's like this system with like the highest integrity that like produces the most accurate outcomes and everything? And I started asking questions to this professor. I started bringing up studies, and like, this was when I knew all like the names and the titles of the papers off the top of my head. Like at one point, I had memorized the DOI number, and I like stated the DOI. I'm like, you can type this in on your computer if you want to. She was so red, like a tomato, in front of the class, and this was a class full of like college sophomores, and nobody knew what I was talking about. This professor was like dumbfounded by the idea that like replicability just isn't that high, or like the median statistical power in behavioral ecology is something like 13% to detect a small effect size.
Yeah, I remember they had like a crack test where you determined if research was good.
That's exactly what we were doing.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, just intro level biology lab sort of reading, and then you ask these people like very basic questions, like, are you concerned about publication bias? And then they say things like, no, and I'm like, dude, why not? And they say, because we're looking for this was in context of like ecological preservation, like we're only looking for the endangered species. So like, if anything, we're going to overstate the severity of the damage, and it's better to like be more cautious. I'm like, dude, do you understand that's why people call you an alarmist? Like, are you retarded? Like,
it's kind of a disturbing answer. The answer basically is like, well, that's only an issue if you're trying to figure out what's true, and we're not.
Right.
So,
right. I had to explain, like, climate alarmism is not like this Koch brothers sort of thing. It's like, this is your stated research practice. I know on my quantitative ecology and evolution final exam, there was this extra unit at the end about climate change added in. And on my scrap paper, I wrote, if lobsters are going extinct due to global warming and ocean acidification, why is Lobster Fest back at Red Lobster or something like that? And the professor read it.
About it then? If lobsters are going extinct, then why is Jordan Peterson talking about it more and more?
Something like that. And then when I'm walking out of the room, I see the professor collect my exam, see the paper. She just rips it up, and she was so mad. because like I didn't miss any classes that semester. Like I was there, I participated in class discussions. Like this professor thought I was gonna like ask for a letter of recommendation for grad school or something, and then I just like gave like a Charlie Kirk tier argument. Yo, you ever heard of Lobster Fest, libtard?
Something on the relatedness to equilibrium thing. Apparently, there was not apparently. There was a paper which used a disequilibrium method to find that the negative correlation between intelligence and fertility was the causal effect of intelligence on fertility. But I fucking lost it, which I'm kind of mad about. But that's a thing to look for.
I used to do a lot of good research on. I used to do a lot of good research using Microsoft Academic, but they took that down. Don't know why. What are good HBD books that have come out in the last few years? Well, you want to know?
No, I mean, Bo Weingart said he was writing a book. I don't have high expectations for it, and I think that just never happened.
Yeah, he should not be allowed to write a book. That would be a mistake.
I'm gonna try to get my thing into a more polished state, and then put it on. Try to see if I can get it put on Imperium Press.
So Bo Weingart is, if you could imagine somebody like the Joe Biden kind of Christian, that's like what Bo Weingart and Charles Murray are, but like for hereditarianism.
Yeah, pretty much.
This Bo also a believer.
He's wild, man. I remember reading his. He wrote this paper. It was supposed to be the summation of all the evidence for hereditarianism, and it was so bad and missed so much. I remember reading it and being like, I feel like you just really wanted to believe this. Maybe you are just a fucking racist or something. It doesn't feel like you actually get the shit.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know somebody goes to Hillsdale where his twin brother teaches at, and he asked...
I know a few Hillsdale people as well, weirdly enough.
He asked his twin brother books he should read up on, like, the general topic of HBD, and he recommended Race, Evolution, and Behavior. So, I mean, the accuracy of the content is questionable to an extent. I would not recommend starting at that book. I think the books like The G Factor, I guess that's maybe not a beginner book. Maybe Human Diversity is a good beginner book by Charles Murray.
My first HBD book was the second. Black Hills. My first book on HBD was actually Race Differences in Intelligence, the second edition. That's actually a good start.
To be honest, I just don't think there are any good. At least of the things I haven't read every book, but of the books I have read, I don't think there are any really good, remotely up to date HBD books.
No, I mean the best book on the topic, in my opinion, is probably not actually about the science itself. Is Why Race Matters.
Oh yeah, I think my two favorite books on HBD would have to be Why Race Matters and In the Know.
I mean, even In the Know, it doesn't really present any like super interesting arguments about race.
Still, it just summarizes a lot of admixture stuff.
It summarizes 5 common arguments pretty well, but like, I don't know. I mean, I really think that the best argument for race realism is just going through the laundry list of alternative explanations and just saying, like, are we really going to sort of have this faith that like secret sauce is out there that's lowering the black IQ? I swear, if I have a son who's like, oh, I'm going to major in sociology, that kid's dead before he even gets to campus.
That kid's
Get
dead
the
before he
fuck
gets to
out.
campus.
Get
My
the
child
hell
will
out.
not be a sociology major.
I would rather my child be gay than a sociology major.
What's the difference? Honestly, I'd say meta-contrarian is more straight than like the typical sociology major.
He's more straight than Hunter Avalone.
That's for sure.
Since the stream is coming to
I
an
like
end,
that meta-contrarian somehow is now just the archetypal faggot, basically.
pretty much.
Is he? I know he's gay, but is he like? Does he have a bunch of stereotypes? I thought he sort of broke some of them.
He looks very straight, honestly.
Yeah, no, he doesn't look super queer.
Like flamboyant. Like the guy is very, without doxing him too much, the guy does not look gay at all.
But he is extremely gay, overly gay.
True. Sean, what do you think of America First? The movement as a whole.
I think Catholicism is gay and Christianity is gay, and I don't like the idea that they have no standards at all for the people being allowed on Cozy. I think some of those people are about as toxic as people online can be.
There's a guy trying to get.
Well, I mean, if you want to market yourself as a free speech platform, that's kind of what you do.
Yeah, but don't get everyone in there. I mean, they're trying to get. There are some guys that are advocating for Ali Jamal to get in. Fucking Ali Jamal, the savior of the white race.
Well, I would say, I mean, the whole thing now where they're just okay. Well, it's like
some of the cozy content is very good. I was just watching a Tyler Russell stream before getting on stream here. I think he does pretty good stuff. Nick's pretty good. Vince James is pretty good. Ryan could be better if he could stop talking about Holocaust stuff.
Ryan, I saw he was putting up videos of him editing audio and talking to people intermittently while he did that before he stopped putting up streams on there.
I miss his stream. I miss his old videos, honestly.
But the whole, being cool with doxing, threatening to dox people, and being cool with DMCAs and stuff like that, I very much dislike all of that stuff that is now surrounding the cozy TV atmosphere.
Yeah.
And if the accusations are accurate about, I mean, if the accusations are true, considering Baked Alaska and the credit cards, then he's just like a criminal. There's nothing more to say.
Nick plans on addressing that whole Jaden situation. He already did that before, but Jaden. I've interacted with both Nick and Jaden, and Nick's been nothing but nice to me. Jaden, on the other hand, has been somewhat of a faggot, so. I'm waiting for Nick to drop that because he's left a few comments. He's made a few comments on his streams, like he talked about how Jaden got blue balls for a conservative influencer called Ella Maulding. And she's just known for she's probably known for two things: eating raw meat and having huge tits. So that's basically her personality trait.
Didn't that girl get exposed for being fat and posting super misleading pictures of her body on the internet for clout?
I'm not sure, but she looks.
I remember seeing a pic of her on Twitter, and she was really fucking fat.
She's obsessed with getting tans. I honestly thought she was Hispanic when I first saw a picture of her.
Don't be hating on the fake. I mean, I've done it.
I've only spoken to her once, and it was just a comment about Jaden's blue balls.
Yeah, I mean conservative influencers.
I will not date
the female conservative influencers are the only people dumber than the male conservative influencers.
I would rather date a goth girl with daddy issues than a conservative influencer.
I mean, yeah, I don't I usually just don't even associate with like conservative women. They're just so retarded. Like I'd rather have a competent liberal woman at this point and just like
There are
hope
some
she
good
stops
conservative.
being
There,
liberal.
there's some good conservative. There are some good conservative women, but there are few and far
They're
between.
like like basically
Like
all
women
of
in
them are just
general.
fucking
Women in
retarded.
general are just really done. Women in general
You know,
are
I
just
mean, women are not the most intelligent species on the planet, but
they just follow the trend, whichever trend they want to. Like
I
there are
don't know.
like
I
there
mean,
are
like,
only like listen, the only intelligent women I've come across in my lifetime are all autistic, and that's saying something.
Well, I think right. What it really is a matter of what they want to apply, whatever intellectual abilities they have too. Because most conservative women are just people that form political views based on gut feelings, disgust reactions, and just hating random groups.
I think that
And
the
so,
disgust reaction in conservatism, I don't know if that actually ended up replicating. Though it intuitively makes a lot of sense, like especially like when like my reaction to like transgender as a concept, it's a disgust reaction. That's probably correct.
I mean, trannies are.
yeah, I think that was one of the ones. It's hard to remember because there's a set of different sort of like negative emotional reactions that initially looked like they correlated with conservatism, and then it turned out that some of them didn't and some of them did.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the person that told me that like the disgust reaction didn't correlate, it was like a Bo Weingard podcast, so he may have been wrong. He's not. He's not the most sophisticated guy.
Yeah, it looks. I'm looking at my notes sort of about the relationship, and it looks like most of the research is finding it replicates. So
Okay, it may have been specifically in the context of experimental manipulation that it doesn't replicate. So, like when you use like fart spray in a room, and you try to make people respond with more homophobic answers, that doesn't work. But the overall cross-sectional relationship may very well exist.
right.
Which, to be fair, like you're like realistically, like you're not going to manipulate people like that.
Like it would be very hard, realistically, for a study to convince me that a big part of the conservative opposition to transgenderism doesn't come from the fact that people have a disgust reaction to them.
That is true. That is true.
We've actively gone from "let us get married" to "suck my dick, bigots." The meme has become reality, honestly.
Yeah, the other day I actually there was somebody I could tell that this individual was transgender on their Tinder page, but they didn't state it. So I decided to swipe right, and then I matched with this person because it's like they swipe right on everybody because they don't even have a lot of options.
Pretty much.
And then I just dragged on the conversation as though I didn't know this person was trans, just trying to see how long they would go before they disclose this kind of information. It's like, buddy, like, I'm fairly certain that in this state, I am legally allowed to kill you if you whip out a dick in my home. But I'm not expecting. Like, you should, like, you need to be disclosing these things. And I was just waiting for this thing to come up. And it never did. Like, the conversation went on like 45 minutes. It never happened. I just blocked the person. I'm like, wow, this is like such a fucking retard. Like, this person's going to get themselves killed.